Chapter 139. The woman seemed to be seriously injured and was unconscious on the ground. Her breathing was extremely weak and she seemed to be on her last breath. Looking at him, Zhu Yao really wanted to give him a kick. That person could be considered to have some ability. Although he was heavily injured, he did not stop absorbing the immortal energy. It was as if he was instinctively using the immortal energy to repair the damaged meridians in his body. This was not a good sign. What kind of mushroom is this? Mushroom curiously circled around the woman a few times. It looks so strange, even stranger than a rock spirit. This isn't a mushroom. Zhu Yao corrected. In its world, was the entire world a mushroom? It's an immortal cultivator. Immortal. Has she also cultivated to become a deity? The mushroom was a little delighted. Isn't this the immortal plane? They were all immortals, right? The mushroom once again sized up the unconscious woman on the ground, and revealed an expression of disdain. She looks so ugly, with all sorts of colors. She doesn't look as good as me at all. How is it colorful? I'm wearing those clothes, okay? Being despised by a mushroom, he was speechless. We should hurry up and leave. Zhu Yao urged. Although she did not know how this person fell here, she could not guarantee that she would be able to guess something when she woke up and saw her. She is an immobile jade and a mushroom with only 5 battle power. They are absolutely not her match. This is not a good person. Why? Did it bully you? The mushroom was startled. Instantly, his sense of justice exploded, and his entire mushroom body turned red. Don't be afraid. When she wakes up, I will avenge you. You can't beat her. You haven't even learned a single immortal technique, and you haven't even managed to cultivate a human form. Where did you get your confidence from? Nonsense. Mushroom instantly panicked, and jumped heavily on the spot. I am the only mushroom in this forest that has become a deity. None of the mushrooms can beat me. How can this new ugly mushroom defeat me? Zhu Yao was a little speechless. She already said that he wasn't a mushroom. The mushroom, however, sat down beside the woman, and made up his mind not to leave. Oh, it's even panting now that I've praised it. Zhu Yao pondered for a moment, and suddenly thought of an idea. Of course Great Immortal Mushroom's magic power is limitless, he's not afraid of such a minor immortal. However, Zhu Yao purposely put on a worried tone. As expected, the mushroom raised his head curiously. However, I heard that this immortal cultivator has always been crafty and scheming. And I have a bad habit. What habit? They especially like to eat mushrooms, and the more handsome and white the mushroom, the more they like it. And it's the raw kind. The mushroom trembled. He pulled himself out of the soil and took a few steps back. He stared at the man on the ground in fear. He actually ate mushrooms. Sinister and cunning indeed. Yes, yes, such a man. She's not fit to fight with Great Immortal. Right. Mushroom nodded his head repeatedly, as though he was concealing something. I will let her off for now. Go home. After saying that, he turned around and ran in the direction he came from. Zhu Yao glanced at the direction where the person was lying. That place was not too far away, and suddenly, she changed her mind. Wait. What are you waiting for? Mushroom was truly frightened. You will be eaten. She is too close to where we live. They'll find us when they wake up. Moreover, they had unknowingly opened up a small path along the way. By then, the little bitch would only need to follow the path and he would definitely be able to find them. Then what should we do? Mushroom was a little flustered. After living for so many years, what he was most afraid of was being eaten. Do we have to move? However, He had lived there for several tens of thousands of years. To him, that piece of land was the best place to stay. Zhu Yao hesitated for a moment. Looking at the hole on the ground which the mushroom had jumped out, she suddenly had an idea. 3 days later, the heavily injured Tao Manfeng finally woke up. However, she realized that she was in a deep hole. The hole was several dozen meters deep, and it was 4 times her height. Furthermore, there were basically no support points in the surroundings of the hole. Adding that her injuries were too heavy, and she was struck by the heavenly lightning, she was basically unable to use her flying sword technique, nor did she have the physical strength to climb up. She pondered for a moment, and decided to meditate to recover a little divine energy. This place should be beneath the lightning divine hole. That Yu Yan did not hold back at all, and he might even chase after her. She did not know how long she had been unconscious for. If she were to be found, she would not be able to escape even if she wanted to. When she thought of this, Tao Manfeng felt extremely sullen. She believed that she did not have any flaws at all, so why was she suddenly recognized? Earlier, when Yu Yan appeared in front of her, it was the same as well. Evidently, he did not have any impression of her appearance. Even when she said that she had lost her memories, he merely blanked for a moment, before accepting it. Everything was filled with strangeness, as though it had begun from the moment she picked up that useless piece of divine jade. Tao Manfeng's expression changed, as she hurriedly reached out her hand to touch her waist, only to realize it was completely empty. That piece of divine jade disappeared. She searched her surroundings for a moment, and realized that there were no traces of the jade anywhere. When did she drop it? She actually did not know about it. Could it be because of that piece of jade? In an instant, the fog in her heart dispersed quite a bit. No matter what, she had to hurry and leave this hole, and find that piece of jade first. Tao Manfeng calmed her heart, and began to meditate, trying her best to recover her divine energy. Her injuries were too heavy, and she would not be able to recover without 3 to 5 years of recuperation. However, simply leaving this hole did not require too much divine energy. 3 days later, Tao Manfeng finally accumulated a strand of divine energy. Casting a soaring art, she flew out of the hole. Raising her head, she looked at the dusky sky, and the lightning divine hall that was hidden within the bolts of tribulation lightning bolts. Taking a deep breath, she turned around and planned to leave. However, just as she took 2 steps, she stepped on thin air. Plop, she fell into another deep hole. Tao Manfeng thought she was a little unable to regain her senses. Why was there another hole next to her? Supporting the wounds that had once again split open, she crawled up. Wanting to cast the soaring art again, however, she realized that her dantian was already empty. She could only accept her fate and begin to accumulate divine energy for the next wave. Another 3 days later, Tao Manfeng finally came out of the second hole. Glancing at the 2 deep holes in front of her, she could only admit that she was unlucky. Turning around, she walked in the opposite direction, yet, she once again stepped on thin air, and fell into the 3rd hole. Tao Manfeng's entire body felt terrible. Another 3 days passed, she fell into the 4th hole. Only when she squatted at the bottom of the 5th hole, did she faintly realize that something was amiss, as though someone was intentionally messing with her. She was certain that the ground outside was definitely filled with holes, however, there was basically no presence of any other deities in the surroundings. This time, she became more cautious. 3 days later, she no longer casually used the soaring art, and instead, seriously began to treat her injuries. Only after 15 days, did she fly her sword out. Looking at the 5 deep holes on the ground, she flew her sword towards the southeast direction without any reluctance. This place was not suitable for her to stay for long. Only when she could no longer hear the slightest sound, did a mushroom head pop out from a human-sized pile of mud under a large tree not far away. Left? The mushroom looked around for a moment, and after realizing that there really wasn't anyone in the surroundings, he leapt out. Great, they really left. That mushroom-eating person has finally left. We're safe. The mushroom excitedly bounced a few times on the spot, causing the leaves on the large tree beside him to fall. Only then, as though he had thought of something, he leapt back to the side of the tree. His entire mushroom emitted out a white glow, and then, he forcefully planted himself into the pile of mud earlier. With a tilt of his body, he dug out a piece of white jade. Rock Spirit, you're right. This method can indeed allow her to leave on her own. As expected of my subordinate, you've learned a little of my cleverness. The mushroom had a complacent look, and did not forget to praise himself. Zhu Yao did not refute, and allowed him to enjoy himself. She had the mushroom purposely dig those holes. Not just those 5, they had dug dozens of deep holes in the vicinity, and there was one every 2 steps. That little bitch was evidently injured by someone. After she woke up, even if she did not fall down, after discovering the dozens of holes in the surroundings, she would subconsciously guess that someone was targeting her, and thus, thought of the person who injured her. Naturally, her first reaction was to hurry and leave this dangerous place. Rock Spirit, let's go out and bask in the moonlight. The mushroom was especially excited. In these few days, in order to prevent that woman from discovering them, they had not come out for activities for a few days, afraid that their movements would be too big, and they would be discovered by her. Now that the danger had been resolved, and it was the night of a full moon, the mushroom naturally brought it up. All right. Moonlight was beneficial to her cultivation, so Zhu Yao naturally did not object. Hence, the mushroom carried Zhu Yao and hopped out of the bottom of the tree, arriving at the spacious land. Bathing under the moonlight, just as she was about to absorb the moonlight, a female voice suddenly sounded from the sky. And I was wondering who it was. So it's just a mushroom demon. Tao Man Feng, who had left earlier, returned, coldly staring at the gigantic mushroom below. A small little mushroom cultivated into a demon, actually dares to play tricks in front of this deity. The mushroom was shocked, and his entire mushroom began to turn green. Save me, I'm about to be eaten. Turning around, he hopped back to the bottom of the tree, and like an ostrich, he dove headfirst into the pile of mud he was hiding in earlier. Being flung by it, Zhu Yao was instantly sent flying. Crashing onto the tree trunk, she fell into the mud as well. The hell, you were still bragging about how amazing you are earlier, why are you acting like an ostrich now? Where's your dignity as a mushroom? Jade pendant. The woman, however, glanced in front of her, evidently noticing Zhu Yao. It's actually here. With a joyous look, she was about to fly her sword over to pick it up. Zhu Yao even had the heart to die. She knew that this mushroom was unreliable. Just as she was about to once again land in the woman's hands, a sudden change occurred. Bolts of heavenly lightning descended from the sky, and like firecrackers being set off, they smashed onto the ground with crackling sounds. In an instant, the lightning sparks filled the entire mountain forest. The surroundings were filled with fearsome pressure, and the thunderous sounds were as though it was the new year. And in the sky, 2 indistinct figures were currently engaged in an intense battle. There were people fighting in the sky, and the implications were simply too wide. Tao Man Feng dodged the lightning sparks that were flashing in all directions in a sorry state. Looking at the jade pendant under the tree not far away, she gritted her teeth, and in the end, flew her sword and left. If she were to stay here any longer, she would definitely be swept into it. The moment she left, the thunderous sounds grew even louder, and there was even a bolt of lightning that struck down from the sky towards the big tree where Zhu Yao and the mushroom were at. Chapter 140. A white bolt of lightning directly split a 3-story tall tree into 2. A burnt smell drifted in the surroundings. Ah, the tree fell. Rock spirit, let's hurry and run. The mushroom was so frightened that he jumped a few meters away. Turning around, he sprinted towards the forest. Hurry and run, wait a minute, I haven't. Before Zhu Yao could even finish, the mushroom had already plunged into the forest without turning back. Run my ass. This lady here didn't even go up. It can't be that it doesn't know that I fell, right? Can't it check the goods first before driving? Mushroom, wait a minute. Mushroom. What happened to protecting her? Unfortunately, no matter how Zhu Yao shouted, that mushroom which had already lost its soul from fright had already left without turning back. In just a few moments, it disappeared without a trace. It completely did not realize that it had already unloaded the goods halfway. He ran with vigor, and in one breath, he ran for more than 10 miles. Rock spirit, don't be afraid. Lightning often strikes in this forest. It'll be fine as long as you hide. There's a cave in front. Lightning simply can't enter it. Rock spirit, you have to hurry. We're almost there. Rock spirit. Rock spirit. The mushroom shouted for a long while, yet there was no reply. In the beginning, he thought it was frightened, but when he returned to the cave, he realized that the jade which was originally lying on his head had disappeared. When did it fall? Why didn't it know? Zhu Yao, who had fallen, felt the malice of the entire world. She had enough of these days where she couldn't move. Let a bolt of lightning strike her to death. Thank you. Unfortunately, the sky was filled with lightning bolts, striking everywhere. Large patches of the forest were charred, and even when the sound of thunder grew softer, not a single bolt struck towards her. Zhu Yao could not help but raise her middle finger at the two people who were fighting in the sky. The hell? A doubtful voice came from beside her. Zhu Yao sensed a dense fragrance of flowers. In the next moment, she was picked up by someone. She met with a pair of extremely seductive peach blossom eyes. A few words instantly surfaced in Zhu Yao's mind, another little bitch. You can speak. The person's voice was extremely magnetic, and his looks were even more unparalleled. The moment people saw him, they could not help but feel like scratching his face. That's right, she had a grudge with this person, because he was the showy man who kicked her down that day. It's rare for a jade stone to become a spirit. The man flipped the jade over. He furrowed his brows. Her expression was indescribably sexy and charming. It's just a little dirty. With a flick of his finger, Zhu Yao, who was covered in a layer of mud, fell to the ground. It returned to its original snow-white appearance. Seemingly satisfied, the man in red flew up into the sky, but he did not use any magic tools. He flew towards the lightning divine hall which was surrounded by lightning in the sky. Zhu Yao was brought to a gorgeous celestial palace. Every single part of it looked as though it was meticulously carved out by the most skillful craftsmen. The furnishings inside were even more exquisite and dazzling. Even the floor was made of jade and covered with a layer of pink flower petals. He seemed to be saying, I'm rich, I'm very rich. I'm super rich. The man brought her to a place that looked like a bedroom and casually threw her on the table. He turned around and entered the inner chamber. When he came out, he had already changed into another set of purple robes. Purple was an extremely difficult color to drive, but surprisingly, it suited him very well. His appearance was astonishing in the first place, and his purple robes had even more so displayed his bewitching aura to the extreme. Little stone, what's your name? The man flicked the jade on the table and curiously asked. Zhu Yao did not speak, and resolutely pretended to be dead. She had a grudge against this person, so she wasn't going to answer. Not going to speak. The man's smile was exceptionally bewitching. Although I picked you up, and from now on, I'm your master. If you don't follow your master's orders, you will be punished. TCH, you make it sound as though I'm selling my body. Who cares about you? Zhu Yao continued to act dead. The man continued to poke the jade. Stop pretending. I know you have already turned into a spirit, and have awakened your spiritual intelligence. Zhu Yao still did not reply. I'm a stone that doesn't know how to speak. Bite me then. His smile grew deeper, and his eyes slightly narrowed. Suddenly, he raised the jade up, pinched it with 2 fingers, and then forcefully twisted it. Zhu Yao was instantly like a spinning top, and began to spin on the table. She felt the world spinning, and her eyes were blinded by the spinning. If he was a human, he would have long puked on his face. So sinister. He actually used this move. You're still not going to speak. Then I will continue spinning. You're ruthless. Zhu Yao could not help but break her technique, and silently gave him the middle finger in the depths of her heart. The hell? That man's smile grew even more sinister, and Zhu Yao felt as though she was looking at a fox. Since you've already been picked up by me, then your previous name isn't important anymore. From now on, you'll be called Pebble. This name is a little too casual, isn't it? Was there such a name? You don't like it? Then change it. The man narrowed his eyes. Of course not. Wait, she already had a name, why did she have to change it? No, she had already experienced a tragedy with regards to her name. Even if she was beaten to death, she would never be named by someone else again. And this name was a little too casual. If it's a stone, then it's called Pebble. Why not call it Emerald Flower? Then Emerald Flower. What happened? Alright, Emerald Flower. In the future, you can call me Master, or Lord. What? What happened, hey? Why did she call herself Emerald Flower, hey? It's getting late. The man calmly glanced at the sky outside. It's time to sleep. Sleep for what? You're a mighty deity, and you still want to sleep. Explain yourself, hey. Today, with Emerald Flower, I can finally have a peaceful sleep. What? What does your sleep have to do with me? This information is a little too much. She's a pure stone, you know. The man, however, did not care about it. Grabbing onto Zhu Yao, he walked straight towards the bed. What are you trying to do? You beast. She's just a stone. A stone can be killed, but not humiliated. The man did not reply, and simply stopped by the bed. Then, he bent his waist, lifted the bed with one hand, and stuffed Zhu Yao at the foot of the bed with the other. Zhu Yao felt an immense pressure pressing down on her body, as though she could hear the sound of jade shattering. And the main culprit had already calmly climbed onto the bed, and laid down properly. Zhu Yao, Mama's egg. He picked her up from afar, just to use as a footrest. It was actually just to use as a footrest. Then why did he have to give her such a pain in the ass name of Emerald Flower? I curse you to have nightmares. 7 nightmares a week, and every dream lasts for 24 hours. Ever since that day, Zhu Yao had the honor of becoming a professional stepping stone. No matter if it was the foot of the bed, the foot of the table, or the foot of the cabinet, as long as that man felt that place was unstable, he would take Zhu Yao out to use as a footrest. She was basically a brick in this divine palace, and would be moved wherever it was needed. Why did it crack? The man took Zhu Yao out from the foot of the table, and looked at it through the light. As expected, he found a tiny crack. Zhu Yao silently rolled her eyes. She was pressed down by tables, chairs, cabinets, and the corner of the bed every single day. It would be strange if she did not crack. It's just a piece of jade, do you think it's a diamond? And now, he actually wanted to use her to smash walnuts. This was simply intolerable. He glanced at the walnut in his hand that had yet to be cracked open. He then looked at the jade head that was evidently about to crack open, and hesitated a little. In the end, he found his conscience, and cast an art out of kindness. Zhu Yao simply felt a dense divine energy surging into her body. Not only did the crack on the jade disappear, even the white jade had instantly turned emerald green. The feeling was even better than the 4 months of cultivation she had. What's going on? Zhu Yao was dumbfounded. I transferred a bit of cultivation to you. To prevent you from cracking too quickly. Was he that kind? Zhu Yao expressed her doubts. If he really wanted to help her, why didn't he directly help her cultivate into a human form? I say, emerald flower. Your sister's emerald flower. When it comes to cultivation, there is a need to take things one step at a time. In this divine realm, there are countless beings that have gained sentience, and usually, they would only be able to take form after cultivating for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. The man suddenly spoke with a heavy heart. How can a method like relying on someone else to transfer cultivation to you be feasible? After saying that, he even gave her a, "You're too naive" look. Then, is there no other way to cultivate into a human form? Must she cultivate for tens of thousands of years? There is. His eyes slightly narrowed, and his smile grew even more cunning. There's a lightning abyssal spring behind my house, and it's naturally nurtured by the earth. Beings with sentience simply have to soak in it for a few dozen days, and they will be able to take on a human form. The hell, it's so convenient, why didn't you say so earlier? If you're obedient, then I can consider, Lord, please don't carelessly order me around. Zhu Yao instantly turned into a lackey, and with every single word, she said. No matter if it's the foot of a table, bed, cabinet, or even the corner of a wall, it won't be a problem. Just leave it to me. It's definitely sturdy and durable, convenient and fast. Not only that, it's aesthetically pleasing. Even if you want me to be a temporary insole, it won't be a problem. I specialize in stepping stones. What's an insole that can increase one's height? The man was silent for a moment, and then, his eyes flashed. Picking up the walnut on the table, he said with a troubled look. This walnut, use me to smash it then. Zhu Yao immediately replied. No need to be courteous. Smash it with all your might. I can take it. The man's eyes slightly narrowed. Without any hesitation, he grabbed onto Zhu Yao and smacked the walnut open. Zhu Yao's entire mind was filled with thoughts of cultivating into a human form. She really wished that he could smash it a few more times, and then throw her into that whatever lightning abyssal spring. Being able to take on a human form in a few dozen days, that's simply beautiful. Only when she successfully smashed open the last walnut, did Zhu Yao realize that something was amiss. She glanced at the red-clothed man. How did you know what I was thinking about in my heart? She clearly did not say that she wanted to take on a human form, so just how did he guess it? If she was a human, she could understand it as observing her facial expressions. However, she was currently a piece of jade, so what the hell was there to observe? Oh. The man threw the nut into his mouth with a calm look, and his eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. Because I know how to read minds. The hell, then didn't he see through all of her thoughts in the past? This sly fox. She really wanted to scratch his face. Calm down, calm down. The weather was so beautiful, yet she was so irritable. Not good, not good. Everything was for the sake of taking on a human form. For the sake of taking on a human form. Hence, for the sake of taking on a human form, Zhu Yao walked on a path of no return that she endured to the point of puking blood. And this lord, whose name was still unknown to her, seemed to have used this bitter jade of hers to the fullest, to the point of making one's hair stand on end. Jade flower, help me pad the corner of the bed. Jade flower, help me pad the corner of the table. Jade flower, help me roast a piece of meat. Jade flower, help me hold down the formation core. Jade flower. This is too boring. Be a shuttlecock, and let me kick it for fun. Flips table. Can we still have fun happily? Chapter 141. Zhu Yao felt as though she was being played. In these few months, she had taken care of kitchen knives, bricks, barbecue racks, shuttlecock, and a series of tools. She was about to cultivate into a jack of all trades. If it wasn't for the fact that she was infused with some immortal chi from time to time to repair her body, she would have long been torn into pieces. However, that coquettish fox did not have the slightest intention of helping her transform. She did not even see the shadow of that thunder abyssal spring. If this went on, she would be finished before she could transform. Perhaps the super high-energy lightning abyssal spring, which was rumored to be able to cultivate into a human form, just by twisting, soaking, and licking it, one could obtain Oreos, Pui, and cultivate into a human form, was real. So here was the problem. Excavation techniques, Pui. Was it faster to die and be reborn first, or to cultivate into a human form first? The conclusion was that it was easier to die. Flip it. A certain unscrupulous person poked the blackened rock with his chopsticks. Zhu Yao flipped over without a single word of complaint. The raging flames beneath her continued to burn, and in an instant, her entire jade-like body was scalding hot. And a certain culprit was currently picking up a piece of raw meat, and throwing it onto the jade that was already boiling hot. In an instant, the fragrance of meat filled the air, and oil flowed all over Zhu Yao's face. Just as the man was about to put down the second piece of meat, his fingers paused. He glanced at the exceptionally obedient jade stone and frowned slightly. This stone spirit actually wanted to die. I say, Cui Hua. You are Cui Hua, your whole family is Cui Hua. Sigh, I originally planned to bring you to the lightning abyssal spring to transform, but I don't think this meat will be finished in a short while. Let's do it another day, I can do it today. Zhu Yao was instantly energized, and she no longer had any thoughts of logging off. Why didn't you say so earlier that you were going to take me there today? But this barbecue, no problem, no problem. Wasn't it just roasted meat? It was nothing compared to the transformation. Grill it, grill it. Grill a few more slices. Do you want to add some seeds? The man narrowed his eyes and a glint flashed across his eyes. Without batting an eyelid, he picked up the raw meat again. And then, it covered Zhu Yao's face. The barbecue operation lasted for a whole day, even though it had been a few days. From time to time, she would be infused with some immortal energy. She felt that she was becoming more and more like a diamond. Her cultivation had also accumulated a little. At least she could turn her life around. But she felt that it was all for her own convenience. To give her the ability. For example, flipping from time to time. But no matter how high his cultivation was, he couldn't withstand being roasted in a blazing fire for an entire day. Although she was a piece of jade and could not feel pain, she could clearly hear the continuous cracking sounds. He'll go offline, right? He definitely would, right? Just when Zhu Yao felt that she could not hold on any longer, the pile of meat was finally roasted. Fortunately, that coquettish fox kept his promise and carried her to the backyard. He came to a pond that was as wide as a well. The pond was not big. Strangely, the water was purple. Not knowing if it was because he had found his conscience, he had healed the cracks on Zhu Yao's body beforehand. Remember that you can only come out after 10 days. Amen. Zhu Yao hurriedly replied. The man loosened his grip, and with a plop, Zhu Yao fell into the purple pond. Only then did Zhu Yao understand why this pond was called the Lightning Abyssal Pond. The hell, what was inside wasn't water, but lightning. And every single one of them were heavenly lightning that were as powerful as the Ascension lightning tribulation. Dense lightning energy filled the sky and earth, and continuously drilled into the jade. She once again heard the cracking sounds, and they were cracking even faster than before. Although she was a piece of rock and could not feel pain, she could not withstand the lightning energy that could run into her divine sense. If not because she frequently came into contact with lightning spiritual energy in the past, she would not be able to withstand it at all. This sort of forceful absorption was even stronger than the spiritual energy rebellion earlier. Zhu Yao could only try her best to stabilize the lightning energy that suddenly surged in, and guide it to circulate according to her will. On the first day, Zhu Yao finally controlled the lightning energy in her body. On the second day, she could already circulate the lightning energy freely. On the third day, her body began to stop cracking. On the fourth day, she had a little bit of cultivation, and her body began to recover. On the fifth day, she turned from a piece of jade into an emerald. On the sixth day, she turned into an even brighter emerald. On the seventh day, she evolved into a large piece of diamond. Zhu Yao had the misconception that she had turned into a tycoon. On the eighth day, her body once again began to crack. On the ninth day, her entire body was enveloped by a soft light, and she began to transform. On the 10th day, a conversation window appeared in front of her. Zhu Yao stared at the window that suddenly appeared, and had the urge to give Realm Spirit a beating. Please set your avatar's physique, adult female, adult male, child, or transvestite. Mama's egg, what's with the transvestite at the back, and the already used at the front? Wasn't this clearly asking her to choose the last transvestite? Asking her to become a transvestite, she would rather die. Realm Spirit, come out if you have the guts. Physique selection countdown, 10. 9, 8. 7, hey, what's with the sudden countdown? Realm Spirit, you're messing with me, right? 3, 2. 1 countdown complete, transvestite automatically selected. Character creation in progress, flips table. Realm Spirit, come out. I guarantee I'll beat you to death. A white light flashed in front of her, and Zhu Yao felt her field of vision instantly widening. The scenery that was incomparably huge earlier, was currently shrinking little by little, and only stopped when it reached the size she remembered. A cool breeze blew past, and Zhu Yao instantly felt a hint of coldness. Only then did she realize that the scenery was not shrinking, but she was growing larger. The white light on her body gradually dimmed, and her transformation was complete. Zhu Yao's first reaction was to nervously lower her head and look down. Q. Fortunately, nothing strange was growing, and her breasts were still there as well, though they still lacked nutrients as usual. You really transformed. She did not know when the sly fox had arrived, and he was currently standing at the other side of the garden. Still carrying that slight bewitching smile, he swept a glance at her, and nodded. You're a little ugly, but your aptitude is not bad. Ho ho. Thanks. You're the ugly one, your entire family is ugly. He walked straight over, as though he was about to pull her out. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind swept past, and a white figure charged out halfway. His cold and indifferent face seemed to be covered in ice, and he was currently staring fixedly at the person sitting in the water. Zhu Yao suddenly had the urge to cry. Master, you still know to come. Yu Wang. Your sister's sister. Your sister's sister, your sister's sister. Why did he remember to call that little bitch Yu Yao, but when it came to her, it changed back to Yu Yao. Yu Yan however heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like this time, she was indeed his disciple. He reached out a hand. Follow me back. I say, little Yen Yen. A certain someone who was intercepted midway glanced at the two of them, and raised his brows. Aren't you going to explain a little? Yu Yen finally turned to glance at the man, and coldly replied. My disciple. The man's expression stiffened, and he let out a deep sigh. Clearly, he was the little rock spirit he picked up, so how did he become his disciple in the blink of an eye? Why did he not remember that the Lightning Divine Hall had a tradition of accepting demons as disciples? I say, Yu Yen however did not have the intention to explain at all. Lifting up his disciple, he said. Floor Master, Yu Yen shall take his leave. His figure flashed, and what was left in front of him was an empty pool. That if you want to snatch someone, at the very least let her finish speaking, hey? Where's the most basic respect towards a floor master? Yu Yen carried his disciple back to his nest, and only then did his depressed mood from losing his disciple for the past few days ease up a little. Seeing that she was sitting in the lightning abyssal pool, and her body was still emitting the aura of someone who had just taken human form, he could more or less guess why that woman would impersonate her earlier. He stared at her completely unfamiliar face for a moment. Strangely, this time, it was no longer a blurry lump, rather, it was directly imprinted into the depths of his heart. The face under the word disciple, in his mind, instantly added another one. He was able to remember it. That's right, this was his disciple. Raising his hand, he touched her wet head, only to receive a very well-hidden supercilious look. Her eyes were filled with accusation. Don't mess up my hairstyle. Without any hesitation, Yu Yen pressed down on her hair, which was already wet in the first place, until it was knotted. That's right, her reaction was the same. She was indeed his disciple. Why were you in the lightning abyssal pool? Yu Yen began his first round of interrogation. Zhu Yao was startled, and a huge wave of anger instantly surged out from her chest. Isn't it because you mistook that little bitch? Little bitch? What the hell was that? Yu Yen was startled for a moment. Suddenly, he recalled the woman who impersonated his disciple earlier, and his expression sank. She had the aura of my divine sense on her. It was the divine sense he had left on his disciple back then. She did, and you admitted it. She pinned me to her waist, so of course she had it. Zhu Yao's anger instantly surged. Even though she clearly knew that he could not be blamed for this, she could not help but flare up. Especially when she recalled how her master treated that woman the same way he treated her, and the shy expression on that woman's face. Zhu Yao really wanted to scratch her face. Looking at his disciple who was gritting her teeth and was about to go crazy, Yu Yen sighed. He casually cast a dirt removal art on his disciple, and once again stroked her head. This time, it's your master's fault. Although he felt that the matter was a little fishy back then, that strand of divine sense was indeed real. Even if that woman was not his own disciple, there was a possibility that she was related to his disciple. That was why he brought her back, and planned to clarify things in the future. However, Zhu Yao pulled down his hand, and with a forceful turn, she pressed her master onto the bed behind him. Just admit your mistake, it's not that simple. Yu Yan's expression did not change, and simply looked at his disciple who was smiling slyly, as though being pressed onto the bed by his own disciple was not a big deal. In any case, it was not the first time. He had already gotten used to it. Master, do you still remember what I said when you ascended? If you dare to flirt with flowers, I will castrate you. Flirt with flowers. Yu Yen was startled, and frowned. A moment later, he replied with a serious look. The Lightning Divine Hall is filled with flowers and grasses. If I don't touch them, it will be a little difficult. The anger that filled Zhu Yao's heart was completely extinguished with a bang. It was as though an illusory voice resounded in her ears. Chapter 142. That's not what I meant. Who told you to flirt around? What does that mean? Yu Yan was confused. Zhu Yao felt a little tired in her heart. Alright, let's not talk about this topic. When I asked you that question, you said that you would tell me after I ascended. Can you tell me now? Do you like me or not? The problem back then. Yu Yan was startled. You're talking about dual cultivation. That's right. What's your answer? Zhu Yao stared straight into his eyes, with a, if you dare to reject me, I'll eat you up expression. Yu Yan's habitually ice-cold face earlier had a hint of redness creeping up on it. After a while, he replied. This matter. Let's talk after you put on your clothes. Initially, it was supposed to be an aggressive interrogation, yet it ended with her running around naked. Zhu Yao felt that even her morals in her next life had been overdrafted. However, the person in question did not react at all. He took out a bunch of clothes and asked her calmly, do you want to wear pink, white, or pink and white? Not only were there undergarments and outerwear, there was even a dudu. Zhu Yao really wanted to pound on the ground and cry. What happened to the saying that men were animals that thought with their lower bodies? Why did they miss one? After such a ruckus, all of Zhu Yao's aura was completely gone. You are not allowed to return to your original form. Yu Yan pulled open the blanket, and dug out his stupid disciple who was currently buried inside, pretending to be dead. His fingertip lightly tapped on the center of the jade, and a surge of pure lightning energy was transmitted over, forcefully turning Zhu Yao, who had turned back into a jade, back into her human form. You have just gained your human form not too long ago, so frequently changing back into your original form is no different to your cultivation. Zhu Yao continued to lay on her corpse. Her soul had been hurt, and she did not want to get up. Be obedient. Yu Yan stroked her head, and glanced at his disciple who was emitting out a dispirited aura. He frowned and pulled her out of the blanket. Master will teach you the way to cultivate qi. Oh. Zhu Yao replied, still unable to raise the slightest bit of interest. It was rare to see a disciple without any motivation. Yu Yan did not know what to do, and faintly felt that she had become so dispirited because of yesterday's incident. Actually, it wasn't that he shouldn't have answered her, it was just that. He hesitated. He tightened his grip. He took the opportunity to pull her into his embrace, before slowly speaking. You. Yao. Amen. Zhu Yao strangely raised her head and looked at a certain someone who had suddenly taken the initiative to open his mind. Yu Yan's expression sank. Looking at the two bright red colors in front of him, he couldn't help but imprint on them. When their lips met, it wasn't the numb feeling that made one feel helpless. Instead, there was an inexplicable sense of hunger. He couldn't help but want to taste more. Zhu Yao was a little dumbfounded. The plot was developing too quickly. His brain couldn't keep up with the speed. He could only see the dazzling starlight in front of him, like countless fireworks in full bloom, never ending. Until she found it hard to breathe. Wait. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao pushed away her master who was evidently still immersed in lust. Let me catch my breath first. Only then did Yu Yan's eyes regain a hint of clarity. Looking at his disciple's obviously red and swollen lips, the hand holding her tightened, suppressing the urge to kiss her again. Only then did Liang Yong speak up. You. Yao, you've just taken human form. Her cultivation level is too far apart from mine. I'm afraid she won't be able to withstand the immortal qi in my body, so I can't rush the matter of dual cultivation. Ah. Zhu Yao felt a little dizzy, and for a moment, she couldn't understand what he meant. However, Yu Yan let go of her a little embarrassedly. He tried his best to fix his line of sight below her head, and did not dare to look at the place he ravaged earlier. If you really want to. Ahem, when your cultivation level rises, naturally, it's possible. Your master will wait for you. After saying that, he left her alone and walked out. His voice was intentionally a little cold. Hurry up and practice your cultivation. I'll wait for you in the peach garden. After saying that, he had already stepped out of the door. His footsteps were as though he was flying, as though something was chasing after him. Zhu Yao, what did he mean? Only then did Zhu Yao recall his words earlier. She had just taken human form, and her cultivation level was too low, so she couldn't withstand the immortal qi in his body. Why did she have to withstand the immortal qi in his body? He couldn't be thinking of something impure, right? Wait a minute. According to her master's way of thinking, he had always understood the meaning of the words literally, then dual cultivation was. Zhu Yao instantly recalled an action movie from a certain island nation. Master, come back and listen to my explanation. After Yu Yan's lecture, Yu Yan finally had a certain level of understanding towards this new world. After ascending, there was a need to cultivate as well. However, this place was different from the cultivation world. Instead of absorbing the corresponding spiritual energy to raise one's cultivation level, one had to absorb divine energy. However, divine energy was not differentiated by the 5 elements. Most probably, the Ascension Lightning Tribulation had removed the shackles on the spirit veins, allowing everyone to start from the same starting point. All the deities who ascended to the higher realm, after a period of cultivation, would have different levels of cultivation. The weakest would be known as an earth deity. Following that, it would be profound deity, gold deity, heavy deity, and high deity. While her master currently possessed the cultivation level of an early stage heavy deity. The person who used her to the fullest, and even helped her take human form, was actually a high deity who was even more powerful than her master. This was something that Zhu Yao was especially unable to accept. She felt that the good days when she relied on her master's influence and acted arrogantly were already gone. Initially, her thoughts of frying and cooking a certain someone had been shattered by reality. He's the Hall Master of Lightning Divine Hall. Remember to stay away from him. Yu Yan solemnly instructed. What's a Hall Master? It sounded really cool. Naturally, he's the person in charge of this Lightning Divine Hall. What the hell? The hell, that person was actually an official. Then what's his name? Yu Yan blanked, a hint of confusion flashed past his face. A moment later, he straightened his expression. You. Just call him Hall Master. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Master, be honest. You basically didn't remember his name, right? Remember, do not go to the hall if there's nothing important. You'll be led astray. Understood. She wasn't going to look for trouble. That monster didn't seem like a good person. Furthermore, no matter what, he was her master's direct superior. It was best for her to be a little more obedient. Oh right, Master, how many disciples does our Lightning Divine Hall have in total? She had to understand the leadership of Lightning Divine Hall. Yu Yan frowned, and pondered for a moment. Currently, including you, there are 3. Ah. She didn't hear wrongly, right? Master, don't joke around. Master, you mean? Other than the 2 of us, there's only that Hall Master in the entire Lightning Divine Hall. MN my ass. What happened to the promised high and mighty sect? Wasn't it supposed to be an awesome sect? Furthermore, there were clearly only 3 people, so why did they have to choose a Hall Master? Why did she feel like she had fallen into a pit? Wait a minute, wasn't it said that the majority of the people in Lightning Divine Hall were disciples who ascended from Jade Forest Mountain? Then, other than Master, there were still a lot of old ancestors, right? Where were they? As though he had sensed her doubts, Yu Yan pointed at the tall tower at the peak of the mountain. All disciples of Lightning Divine Hall, after cultivating to the level of a heavy deity, will enter the tower to cultivate. Legend has it that a strand of heavenly secrets is sealed there. If one were to comprehend it, they would be able to cultivate into the realm of gods. Realm of gods. The god race. Wasn't it said that the god race had all died? The realm of gods is different from the god race. The god race is an ancient race. Yu Yan explained. And the gods of the realm of gods are the high gods of the heavenly Tao. No one has ever seen a true high god, and they are still people who have grasped the laws of the heavenly Tao. The laws of the heavenly Tao were that incredible? Then, weren't they the managers of the three realms? Your Grand Master is in the tower as well. Oh, I see. She was wondering why there were only 3 people in such a huge Lightning Divine Hall. What about that Hall Master? Isn't it said that once a heavy deity has reached the level of a heavy deity? That Hall Master was a high deity, a level higher than a heavy deity, right? That's why, little Yen Yen, it's best if you hurry and take over the position of Hall Master. Let me enter the tower instead. Before Yu Yan could even reply, he was interrupted by an extremely seductive voice. After a rain of petals, the red-clothed man appeared in the peach forest. Hall Master. Yu Yan called out. His voice was cold to the point of dropping slag, as he reflexively pushed his disciple behind him. Ha, little Yen Yen is still so cold. Eugene seemed to have already gotten used to his attitude, as he turned his head to look at Zhu Yao who was hiding behind him. I say, Cui Hua. Your sister's Cui Hua. Zhu Yao, who had someone backing her up, instantly became unyielding. She definitely could not acknowledge this name. As expected, the good master of China, Yu Yan, took a step forward to shield her, and hit his disciple even more tightly. With a righteous tone, he corrected her. She's my personal succeeding disciple, Yu Wang. Your sister's desire. Calling her Yu Wang was even worse, alright. Zhu Yao was instantly driven mad. To pick such a name so casually, was this the inheritance of her sect? Stop fooling around. Yu Yan raised his hand and pushed his disciple behind him again, before looking at the person over there. What's the matter? If you have something to say, then say it. If you have nothing to say, then scram. Ha. Eugene sighed heavily. I say, little Yen Yen, I'm still your senior. Is it really alright to be so heartless? Alright. Yu Yan nodded without a hint of redness on his face. Eugene's legs tripped, and he almost fell. He actually shamelessly admitted it. I will not take over the position of Hall Master. Yu Yan stabbed him again. The smile on Eugene's face finally could not be maintained. This is the order of the Hall Master, you dare to defy it. The other party replied without any hesitation. I dare. Towards his reply that did not leave any room for discussion, Eugene did not look angry at all. Instead, his smile grew even more enchanting. The position of Hall Master is passed down from generation to generation in the first place. I have already waited for so long, it's about time for you to take it. My master did not take it. Yu Yan stabbed him again. Don't mention that traitor to me. Eugene seemed to have recalled something, and finally grew angry. I'm his grandmaster, after all. Forget about him not obediently taking over the position of Hall Master, he even entered the tower behind my back without saying a word. Otherwise, why would I need to look for you? In the past, the disciples of Lightning Divine Hall would enter the Lightning Divine Tower to comprehend the path to godhood. However, it was impossible for such a huge Lightning Divine Hall to leave them unattended. Hence, a manager would always be left behind, and this manager was the hall master. Initially, the position had been passed down well from generation to generation, yet, a deviation just had to occur in his hands. First, something happened to his unlucky disciple when he was ascending. He had no choice but to send him into the lightning divine tower, hoping that his own master would be able to save him. However, who knew that the moment he was sent in, he never came out again. After that, his grand disciple ascended again. He was a very obedient disciple, and was usually very respectful towards him as well. Just as he was about to pass down the position of hall master to him, who knew that after he cultivated to the heavy deity level, he actually ran into the tower without saying a word, causing him to look forward to it for so many years. After that, it was this Yu Yan. This person did not have any intentions of entering the tower, and simply refused to accept this position no matter what. Chapter 143. Yu Yan did not reply. With a twist of his hand, a divine sword appeared in his hand. What's he doing? Xu Yao was a little confused. Eugene, however, seemed to have sensed something. A hint of a smile surfaced at the corner of his lips, and he summoned a divine sword as well. Two figures flashed, and their figures were no longer in their original positions. Amidst the layers of lightning clouds outside the lightning divine hall, two figures were currently engaged in an intense battle. In an instant, lightning flashed, and the rumbling of thunder constantly resounded in her ears. Quite a few lightning bolts even shot towards the forest below. Xu Yao was a little speechless. Was it really alright to fight just like that? At the very least, you're from the same sect, right? If her guess was correct, then the hall master should be her grandmaster's grandmaster, right? Master, are you trying to deceive your grandmaster? Looking at the familiarity between the two, they knew that they had already flown out of the lightning divine hall's range. Evidently, this wasn't their first time fighting. Xu Yao finally understood who the person was when she was picked up by the floor master, and fought with him until lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. In the beginning, she was a little worried about her master. After all, their cultivation levels were a level apart. Hence, she anxiously stared at the two figures in the distance, afraid that her master would be at a disadvantage. However, after looking for a while, nothing seemed to have happened. Though, her neck was hurting a little. Their battle lasted for an entire day. At the very end, Xu Yao unknowingly fell asleep. When she woke up, she was on the bed in the house. It seemed like her master had brought her back to the house after the fight. Ever since then, Eugene would leave the mountain from time to time. Every single time, he would only have a single goal, and that was to have Yu Yan take over the hall master's position. Threats, temptations, lies, and all sorts of methods were used. However, a certain someone simply did not buy it. In the end, they would always start fighting. Xu Yao's apprehension in the beginning turned into calmness later on. Now that she saw the two of them fighting, she could already do whatever she wanted to do. Occasionally, when she was free, she would even move a stool to sit in the courtyard, and activate her spectator mode. It would be even better if there were some melon seeds. Little grand disciple. Eugene walked over with a smile. The corner of Xu Yao's lips twitched. Great-great-grandmaster. Ho, Chui. Yu Yao is still the one who knows the rules. Eugene had no choice but to swallow back the greeting he was about to say. Sigh, as expected, she was still cute when she was a jade. Why don't you help me persuade your master to accept the position of floor master? In any case, I helped you transform. Don't tell me you've forgotten. How could I forget? The corner of Xu Yao's lips twitched. He used her to roast meat, and used it as a cushion for the foot of his bed. I remember it clearly. Eugene was stunned. As if recalling those things, a trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. Cuckoo. Little Yu Yao, look at how your master isn't in a hurry to enter the tower. Since he had nothing better to do, why not accept this task? Furthermore, the dignified Hall Master of Lightning Divine Hall had a noble status. No one in the entire immortal world can compare to him. I am willing to pass this status to your master. What a wonderful thing. Thank you. If it was really that good, why didn't he sit down himself? Tell this to my master. He finally understood why his master didn't live in the grand palace at the top of the mountain and insisted on squatting at the foot of the mountain. It was all because he was annoyed by the tower master. You child, if your master is willing to listen to me, why would I look for you? He won't listen to me either. She was his disciple, not his master. He will. Eugene's expression turned joyful, and he moved a little closer. You're his personal succeeding disciple, he will naturally listen to you. But you're his personal succeeding great-grandmaster as well. If they were to compare statuses, you're much higher than me. This isn't the same. Your master hasn't entered the Lightning Divine Tower for so many years, most likely because he's waiting for you to ascend. From this, it can be seen that he views you as his disciple very highly. Currently, you have yet to officially cultivate, so he naturally has to spend time to guide you. In any case, he won't be entering the tower anytime soon, so wouldn't accepting the position of floor master be killing two birds with one stone? He had an "I'm doing this for your own good" expression. I believe in master's arrangement. Seeing that she wasn't going to budge, Eugene continued. After all, we share the same bed. How can a little grand disciple be so heartless? Zhu Yao instantly stood up. How are we sharing the same bed? The one lying on the bed is you, and I'm the one using the feet. Don't mind such details. Eugene smiled especially shamelessly. Furthermore, your master's position as floor master will be passed down to you sooner or later. Since your master has accepted it now, you can also. Halfway through his words, he suddenly stopped. As though he had thought of something, his eyes instantly shone. Turning his head to stare at her, his smile grew even wider. What are you trying to do? Why was he smiling so strangely? Little grand disciple. Eugene suddenly moved closer, his pair of peach blossom eyes seemed to have narrowed into slits. Do you want to be the floor master? I don't. It's fine. If you don't want to now, you can always change. Come to my palace. I will pass the floor master seal to you. Eugene basically did not have the intention to let her choose. Grabbing onto Zhu Yao, he flew towards the mountain peak. Toward such forceful actions, Zhu Yao had no choice but to summon her ultimate summon beast. Master. There's a strange uncle who wants to steal your disciple. A white light flashed, and a certain floor master was once again intercepted midway. The two figures once again fiercely fought. As the only survivor, Zhu Yao immediately returned to the house and pulled out a stool. Finding a position with the best view, she began to spectate. Next time, I'll look for master to make some spicy gluten. This fight between the two of them lasted for exactly 6 hours. Compared to the shortest fight in the past few months, it was even shorter by 4 hours. The reason why it ended prematurely was because someone had interfered in the middle. That person flew over on a sword, and dressed in a blue gown, he looked valiant and formidable. Not only that, he was very polite and well-behaved. Amidst the layers of lightning formations outside the Lightning Divine Palace, he began to announce with a clear voice. His voice was loud and clear, and his aura was extremely imposing. Envoy of the Advent Cloud Hall of the East requests an audience with the Lightning Divine Palace. Before he could even finish, he was unfortunately struck by a stray bullet, no, a stray lightning bolt. With a plop, he fell towards the lightning divine palace. His loud and clear voice, filled with confidence, was still echoing in the air. Yeah. 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 It reverberated further and further away. Not even a moment later, Zhu Yao simply heard a paw sound. An extremely fresh charred corpse, whose entire body was emitting out the fragrance of roasted meat, fell in front of her. Zhu Yao, Eugene, Yuyen, Cuckoo. Eugene, who finally stopped, a hint of awkwardness flashed past his face. Trying to cover it up, he said. Little grand disciple, it seems like this person was sent by the Advent cloud hole. I'll leave him to you to deal with. When he wakes up, bring him to the Great Hall to meet this floor master. After saying that, he turned around and flew away. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. You shirking responsibility, bitch. Master. Zhu Yao could only look at Yu Yan next to her for help. Yu Yan glanced at the charred corpse on the ground, casually pulled his disciple into the house, and threw out 2 words. Not dead. Only then did Zhu Yao heave a sigh of relief. However, was it really a man to leave him behind like this? This matter proved that the so-called deities all had the physique of cockroaches. On the second day, that charred and unmoving corpse woke up by itself. Not only were his injuries healed, even his clothes had been changed into a new set. The young man respectfully bowed towards her, and his voice was still as loud and clear as before. This fellow deity, I wonder if this is the lightning divine hole. Yes. Zhu Yao replied. He couldn't be trying to settle the debt with her, right? The young man's face was dyed with a hint of joy. Then I wonder why I fainted here. Here it comes. Zhu Yao pointed to the sky. You were struck by the heavenly lightning, so. Everything was done by that sly fox, it had nothing to do with her master. I see. The young man raised his head, glanced at the surrounding lightning clouds, and said with a praising look. As expected of the lightning divine hole. The mountain barrier formation sure is exquisite. Even though I was standing outside the formation, I was still struck. Zhu Yao widened her eyes. He couldn't have thought that the thing that injured him was the lightning formation outside, right? Zhu Yao took a deep breath, and said with a stern look. Yes, you were injured by the formation. Please look at my stubborn eyes. But fortunately, you're fine. In the future, don't casually approach it, dear. Thank you for your reminder, fellow deity. Ho ho. The young man gave her a smile filled with gratitude, and only then did he recall the proper business. I believe fellow deity is a disciple of the lightning divine hole. This humble one is the envoy of the Advent Cloud Hall, Miao Lin. Under the request of the Patriarch, I have an important matter to discuss with the Hall Master. I wonder if fellow deity can pass on a message. So it's fellow deity Miao Lin. Zhu Yao replied with a courteous smile. The Hall Master has instructed that if fellow deity wakes up, you can be brought to meet him directly. The Hall Master actually knew that I would come here. Miao Lin's eyes shone, and they were filled with a look of worship. As expected of a divine strategist. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. Young man, you're too naive. The one who injured you was that bitch. Then I will have to trouble fellow deity. Zhu Yao turned around and waved to the person sitting in the courtyard. Master, I will send him to the great hall at the mountain peak. I will be back soon. Only then did Miao Lin realize that there was another person sitting in the courtyard not far away. He was secretly shocked when he took a look. This person was actually a Stygian immortal. Moreover, the aura that was being emitted from his body was extremely terrifying. Hearing his own disciple's words, Yu Yan frowned. Raising his head, he looked towards the man next to his disciple, and stared at him for a moment. Then, he lightly replied. And after pondering for a moment, he added. Come back early. After saying that, he continued to stare at the person next to him. Miao Lin broke out in a cold sweat under his stare. Was it a secret feeling? Why did he feel that the Stygian Immortal Senior seemed to have something against him? He was clearly just here to send a message. He didn't offend the Stygian Immortal, did he? Zhu Yao led Miao Lin directly from the teleportation formation at the foot of the mountain to the Great Hall at the peak, but she did not see Eugene. Zhu Yao couldn't just leave Miao Lin alone either, so she had no choice but to accompany him and wait. But the two of them sat there for a whole 4 hours, and they still did not see the shadow of that coquettish fox. Fellow Immortal Yu, I wonder if the Tower Master has something important to attend to, that's why. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Important matter. Based on that person's urination, at this time, he could only be sleeping. Fellow Immortal Miao, please wait a moment. I will go in and send a message. Zhu Yao instructed. Turning around, she entered the back of the hall, and kicked open a certain door. Chapter 144. Zhu Yao instantly felt that something was amiss. Turning around, she wanted to slip away, but Eugene simply flicked his finger lightly and fixed her in place. In a flash, he was standing in front of her. What are you trying to do, Moss? Zhu Yao opened her mouth and was about to shout out, however, with a light wave of his sleeves, Zhu Yao was unable to even speak. Eugene smiled cunningly. Fuck, this guy is doing this on purpose. Her master did not agree to take over the floor master's position, so he set his sights on her. What a beast. Don't be afraid. It's just an immortal seal. It won't hurt at all. There was a flash of lightning in his hand, and a thin thread of red light wrapped around his fingers. It would be strange if it did not hurt under such a strong pressure. She had only entered Lightning Divine Hall for a few months, and the position of floor master was already passed to her just like that. Was there a need to treat it so lightly? If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have sent Miao Lin here. Eugene raised his hand which was covered in lightning sparks, and reached out 2 fingers to press onto Zhu Yao's forehead, sending the divine imprint directly into Zhu Yao's body. Before he could retract his hand, an unforeseen event occurred, and the celestial seal was bounced back. Is there another divine sense imprint in your body? Eugene was startled, his face was filled with disappointment. In an instant, as though he had thought of something, he sized Zhu Yao up for a moment, and weakly said. You're really Yu Yan's personal succeeding disciple? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes in reply. What else should I do? Forget it. Eugene let out a long sigh, and removed Zhu Yao's immobilization. The whole master's divine imprint was a divine sense type imprint, and every human body could only have one type of divine sense imprint. Initially, he had thought that little grand disciple was just a jade spirit, and even if she was Yu Yan's disciple, she could only be a regular disciple, and it was impossible for her to leave behind a personal succeeding disciple's imprint. Who would have known? He had miscalculated. Once this divine sense was planted, only the owner of the divine sense could remove it. In other words, unless it was Yu Yan. Otherwise, he can forget about giving the floor master seal to Zhu Yao. He once again sized Zhu Yao up from head to toe. I say, little grand disciple, why would your master take in a jade spirit as his personal succeeding disciple? And she didn't seem to have taken on a human form earlier, right? None of your business. Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. My master has a discerning eye for talent. That's why, out of the vast sea of people, out of the millions of disciples, he chose me, this stone, Eugene said. Can you not mention rocks? All right. Let's go take a look at that emissary of Advent cloud hole. Eugene, who had failed in his sneak attack, walked towards the front of the hall with a disappointed expression. Zhu Yao had no choice but to follow. I'll go back to Master and tell on him. Miao Lin patiently waited in the main hall. He only turned around when he sensed someone approaching. His face was filled with joy as he walked towards the two of them from afar. Miao Lin of Advent Cloud Hall greets exalted immortal Eugene. Eugene replied faintly. Compared to his previous cheeky smile, Eugene's expression changed. This voice was indescribably majestic and domineering. Even Zhu Yao could not help but turn her head in astonishment. However, she saw a white figure directly pass her and step into the hall. He sat down on the highest chair. He had white eyebrows, a white beard, and a white robe. He looked like an immortal in his 70s, but he was very dignified. It was daunting. Who was this person? Tower Master. Miao Lin's expression was as usual as he respectfully reported. My master sent me here to discuss the name list for the Great Dharma Assembly. Zhu Yao blanked. Only then did she look at the unfamiliar old man in the middle. No matter how stupid she was, she could tell that the old man was Eugene. Why did he make himself look so old for no reason? Zhu Yao was not clear when Miao Lin left. However, Eugene did not come to harass the two of them for the next few days. It must be related to the Great Dharma Assembly that Miao Lin mentioned. As for why Eugene wanted to turn into a white-haired old man, Zhu Yao had asked this question as well. Eugene smiled especially smugly, and his reply was especially righteous. If I don't turn too old, how can I display the aura of the Hall Master of Lightning Divine Hall? Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. Indeed, his old man appearance was pretty good at scaring people. Furthermore, Eugene then added, if I were to appear in front of people with my original appearance, I would definitely be younger than that Advent Cloud Hall Master. How can I point at people's noses and scold them with the identity of a senior? The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. As expected, a dignified aura was a lie. You turned old just to make it convenient to scold people, right? Eugene did not feel ashamed, instead, he felt proud. The hearts of people in this world are sinister. That's why as the Hall Master, there would always be a few days of discomfort every year. Are you treating the Hall Master as your aunt? Since the crazy Hall Master did not come, Yu Yan began to focus on imparting Zhu Yao divine arts. As a jade spirit, and one that was formed in the lightning abyssal spring, her foundation was not stable, and she had no choice but to cultivate from the beginning. Her master said that cultivation in the higher realm completely relied on divine energy, and there was no longer any distinction between the 5 elements. All humans and living beings with spiritual intelligence would absorb divine energy to raise their cultivation. Zhu Yao had experimented with absorbing divine energy before, and it wasn't anything difficult for her. However, after meditating for an entire month, the divine energy in Zhu Yao's body was still pitifully little. With her current cultivation, she could not even be considered as an earth deity. As for the bug she had to fix this time, she did not know who it was either. Zhu Yao was a little anxious, as she faintly felt that the bug this time was not that simple. After all, this was the divine realm. Seeing that her cultivation was not working, she was a little anxious. Calm your heart, circulate your energy. Seeing his disciple who was evidently not in the right state of mind, Yu Yan reminded. It still doesn't work. Zhu Yao instantly deflated, and let out a long sigh. Master, why is my divine energy absorption speed so slow? It had already been more than 4 months. Putting aside the improvement in her cultivation, she instead felt that the divine energy in her body was growing weaker. Yu Yan frowned. He naturally sensed his disciple's situation, however, even he did not know the reason. Logically speaking, his disciple's aptitude could not be considered bad, and from the speed at which she took human form, a spirit that could take human form in 10 days from the lightning abyssal spring could be considered rare. However, ever since she took human form, her cultivation had stopped. It was as if the divine energy had already reached a saturated state, and no matter how much she absorbed, she could not raise it any further. Is there any abnormality in your dantian? Zhu Yao carefully sensed for a moment, and then shook her head. No. The divine energy in her dantian was pitifully little. Yu Yan reached towards her wrist, and inspected the meridians in her entire body. They were vast, and there was not the slightest bit of abnormality. Logically speaking, this should be an exceptional aptitude. Then just what was the reason? Master, I can't possibly be a jade spirit forever, right? In the divine realm, there were at least earth deities. If this continued, she would become cannon fodder at any moment. Not to mention fixing bugs or whatnot. Yu Yan pondered for a moment, and then grabbed onto her hand. Try again. As he said that, he passed a strand of divine energy over. Zhu Yao focused. Just like before, she guided that strand of divine energy into her dantian, but the divine energy grew weaker. Before it could even enter her dantian, it had already completely dissipated. Master. Just what was going on? I have never seen a situation like this either. Divine energy that entered one's body could actually dissipate. That sure was rare. For the next few days, you should first practice the various mystic arts. After the Grand Mystic Assembly, I will bring you into the tower. Tower. Zhu Yao raised her head, and looked towards the lightning divine tower that towered into the sky. Yu Yan stroked her head. When the time comes, you can ask my master if he has seen such a situation before. Oh. So he was looking for reinforcements. Zhu Yao sank into silence for a moment, and continued to ask. What's the Grand Mystic Assembly? That unfortunate Miao Lin seemed to have come for this matter as well. The Grand Mystic Assembly. It is held once every 10,000 years, and it's the day to discuss the candidates to enter the tower. Yu Yan explained. Enter the tower. Aren't only Lightning Divine Hall disciples allowed to enter the tower? Yu Yan shook his head. The divine realm has 4 continents, and there are countless deities. The Lightning Divine Tower is the only path to godhood in the divine realm. Naturally, not only the disciples of Lightning Divine Hall are allowed to enter. However, only the seal of the Lightning Divine Hall's Hall Master could activate the Lightning Tower. Every 10,000 years, the higher realm will host a Grand Mystic Assembly. Only the high deities from the 4 continents have the qualifications to enter the tower and ascend to godhood. Aren't Stygian immortals allowed to enter the tower? The inside of the pagoda is extremely fierce and filled with tribulation lightning. Other than the disciples of Lightning Divine Hall who specialized in lightning energy, it was very hard for the others to hold on. Not to mention that it was a trial to become a deity, it was likely that he would die in the lower 10 levels. That's why the disciples of Lightning Divine Hall can enter the tower as heavy deities, while the others have to be high deities. So that's how it is. Why do we have to discuss the candidates? Can't we just enter the pagoda when our cultivation is high enough? Every time the tower opens, only 5 people can enter. So little. No wonder, it seems like this so-called Grand Mystic Assembly is actually an opportunity for the immortal world to compete for a higher position. Can't we come back after entering the tower? If you're in the lower 10 levels, you can freely enter and exit the tower. After the 10th level, you will no longer have the chance to leave the tower, and you can only focus on the Tao. If you don't ascend to godhood, you will die. Deities can die as well. Deities can indeed live forever, but that doesn't mean they can't die. The number of deities who died in battles, personal grudges, cultivation, and treasures had long been uncountable. Zhu Yao raised her head and looked at the tower whose top could not be seen. Then, are there really people who ascend to godhood? Yu Yan was silent for a moment, before he slowly said. No one knows. Demigods transcend beyond the 6 paths, and are not within the 5 elements. No one knows what a true god looks like. In an instant, a different feeling rose from the depths of Zhu Yao's heart. After ascending to the 10th level, there was no turning back. Could this kind of cultivation where there was completely no path of retreat, where one could only walk to the end, really allow one to ascend to godhood? In the first place, after becoming a deity, one would already have an endless lifespan, so why must one become a god? After understanding what the glorious mystic assembly was, the lightning divine hall evidently became lively. Usually, other than her master and the hall master, there were no other living mouths. However, it was as though in a single night, a large number of disciples appeared out of nowhere in the lightning divine hall. Men and women, old and young, there were so many of them that it was almost impossible to count them all. Zhu Yao even suspected if she had reincarnated and changed the map again. Though everyone's attire was different, everyone's sleeves were embroidered with the symbol of a thundercloud. This symbol was on her clothes as well. Where did these lightning divine hall disciples come from? What happened to the agreement of only 3 people? Zhu Yao was puzzled, until one day, when she was practicing her mystic arts, a ball of lightning struck a blue-clothed disciple who was sweeping the floor. That disciple's entire body instantly combusted. Zhu Yao was shocked, and hurriedly extinguished the fire. However, she only saw a burnt piece of paper falling. Picking it up, she saw 3 words written on that piece of paper. Sweeper. What the hell was a sweeper? I say, little grand disciple, don't casually play with lightning. Wouldn't it be bad if you hit someone? Eugene suddenly appeared out of nowhere, took the piece of paper from Zhu Yao's hand, and cast an art with his hand. In an instant, the piece of paper once again turned back into the blue-clothed disciple from earlier. Other than his hair being burnt black, everything else was normal. Without saying a single word, he picked up the broom that had fallen on the ground, and continued to sweep the floor. Zhu Yao was dumbfounded. However, Eugene had already turned around and walked away. As he walked, he even threw talismans everywhere as though he was throwing money. The moment those talismans landed on the ground, they turned into disciples with different appearances. As though they had received some sort of order, they turned around and did their own tasks. Chapter 145. The Grand Assembly finally began. Early in the morning, Zhu Yao sensed that there were many unfamiliar presences in the surroundings of the lightning divine hall. She had originally planned to stay in the house and continue to stay at home. However, he was forcefully dug out by Eugene and dragged to the main hall's plaza to keep up appearances. Lightning Divine Hall was known as the most mysterious organization in the divine realm, and no one knew how many disciples they had. Furthermore, they would not easily walk down the mountain, so no one knew that there were actually only 3 people in the Lightning Divine Hall. As for the paper men that filled the mountains and plains, they were all created by Eugene. This was a type of talisman envoy that possessed a bit of spiritual intelligence. If it wasn't struck by lightning, it wouldn't reveal its true form, so it was very difficult to see through it. But after all, this was a mountain gate that only opened once every 10,000 years. The dignified Tower Lord was surrounded by people with blank expressions. No matter how real it was, people would still be able to tell. Hence, Zhu Yao and her master were forced to be strong men. The people from the various continents had arrived early, and had already been waiting outside the lightning formation for a long time. Outside the Lightning Divine Hall was laid with the 9 revolutions 5 elemental lightning formation, which possessed boundless might. Even an exalted immortal would not be able to enter unscathed. Usually, this formation would be closed, and it would only occasionally be opened when Eugene and Yu Yan were fighting. Eugene said a few words to the two of them before opening the formation. The lightning clouds surrounding the lightning divine hall gradually dispersed, revealing a large group of people gathered outside. Taking a closer look, there were a total of 5 groups of people flying in the sky. Surprisingly, they didn't communicate with each other at all, let alone greet each other. It seemed like these people didn't have a good relationship with each other. But, didn't they say that there were only 4 continents? Why were there 5 groups of people? Eugene activated his pretentious mode again and changed into a businesslike expression, the old man face. The 9 revolutions 5 elemental lightning formation had already been completely withdrawn. However, the 5 people in the sky did not move. They just quietly flew in the sky. Eugene glanced at the pink-robed disciple who was transformed from a talisman paper and said indifferently, "Come in." The pink-robed disciple nodded. He then raised his head towards the sky and shouted, "Welcome, Advent Cloud Hall of the East." Her voice was extremely loud, and the entire sky reverberated with her voice. It could be seen that it was imbued with celestial power. In the quiet sky, there was a group of people on the rightmost side. He slowly flew toward the main hall. I told him he wouldn't budge no matter what. So they had to take roll call before they could come down. There were about a dozen people in that group, all wearing the same school uniform and hair accessories. Even their expressions were solemn. Among the crowd, there was a person holding a flag. On the flag was a vivid and lifelike azure dragon. In an instant, Zhu Yao felt as though she was entering a sports competition, and the opening speech unconsciously rang in her ears. The ones walking towards us were the representatives of Advent Cloud Hall. The Advent Cloud Hall's representative team was a well-trained team. They were in high spirits. They had a dignified appearance, and they strode forward in a uniform manner. They raised the eye-catching sign of one azure dragon high up in the air. Their vigor and determination to win could be seen everywhere. Adhering to the tenet of spirit cultivation first, friendship is bullshit, and promoting, strive to be the strongest. Competitive spirit, to higher. Towards the goal of becoming stronger and more awesome. Let's welcome Fing to a mountain from the south. Following closely behind was the team representing Mdikatua. The team representing Mdikatua was a combination of athletics and beauty. They would use their own wisdom and sweat to display their tenacious spirit and youthful enthusiasm on the stage of ascension. At this moment, they were using their orderly steps, strong physiques, and good mental outlook to prove their courage and strength to win. Let us welcome the Fluorescent Wind sect of the North. Following the announcement of the announcer, the team representing Fluorescent Wind sect stepped forward in an orderly manner, majestically and elegantly walking into the competition grounds. In an instant, it was as though a stone had raised 1,000 ripples, with each wave higher than the previous. Look, the team representing Fluorescent Wind sect has arrived. Dressed in a well-ironed school uniform, and with vigorous steps, we found vigor and hope from him. Let us welcome the Soaring Spell Hall of the West. The next to appear was the team representing Soaring Spell Hall of the West. Every single member of Soaring Spell Hall of the West was filled with confidence, and was determined to fight with all their might on the competition grounds. They wanted to display their own elegance, and add new brilliance to Soaring Spell Hall. They firmly believed that as long as they worked hard, they could become gods. Let us welcome the Scattering Cry Hall of the West. The last to appear was the team representing Scattering Cry Hall. Scattering Cry Hall. Alright, she couldn't make it up anymore. The moment they entered, in less than a few minutes, the initially empty main hall was already filled with people. Eugene still had that arrogant expression on his face. With his hands behind his back, his eyes indifferently swept across everyone present. Unexpectedly, not a single person present revealed the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Instead, the various sect masters, hall masters, and hall masters who were said to be here to enter the tower, all stepped forward in unison, and respectfully bowed towards Eugene as a junior. "We greet Tower Master." Eugene still maintained that high-profile posture of looking at the sky at a 45-degree angle, leaving the 5 people a nostril angle. Only after a while did he lightly reply. "Emin, what was called being pretentious? This was it. Have there been any changes to your selection of people to enter the tower?" The 5 people exchanged glances, yet no one responded. A while later, the Hall Master of Soaring Spell Hall stood out. "The 5 of us have already made up our minds to enter the tower. There are no changes." Eugene swept his gaze across the 5 people leading the way. Without saying anything else, he turned around and headed towards the direction of the Lightning Divine Tower. "Those who enter the tower, come. The others stay." After saying that, his figure flashed, and disappeared from where he stood. He completely did not have the intention to wait for the 5 people. However, the 5 people seemed to have already gotten used to it, as they were not in a hurry to chase after him. Instead, they turned around and instructed the disciples behind them. They were all the rulers of a large land, and since they had already decided to step onto the path of godhood, naturally, they would not return. Hence, the ones they instructed were the successors who would take over their positions. Only the sect master of Fluorescent Wind's sect was different. Instead, he walked towards a woman, and it was unknown what he said. That woman seemed to have tear stains on her face, and it seemed like she was his duo-pair companion. Zhu Yao frowned, feeling a little uncomfortable. Was becoming a god really that important? He even had to leave his wife behind. Zhu Yao did not look for too long. After all, she was here today to support Eugene. After taking a few glances, she was pulled to the front of the Lightning Divine Tower by Yu Yan. Eugene, with his white hair and official business expression pack, was already standing in front of the tower. This was the first time Zhu Yao had truly seen the Lightning Divine Tower. Only after approaching it did she realize that not only was the tower tall, it was even a little ridiculously large. With a single glance, the bottom of the tower occupied more than half of the mountain peak. Its entire body was covered in red lightning sparks. She did not know what the surface of the tower was made of. It was as white as jade, yet, it would occasionally emit a rainbow-colored light. As though it was alive, when the lightning sparks passed by, circles of ripples would even spread out on the surface of the tower. Raising her head to look at this peculiar tower, she suddenly felt a strange feeling. Her chest felt a little stuffy, and even her breathing had become unstable. She took a deep breath, trying to suppress that strange feeling, yet, it instead became even more serious. The 5 people who entered the tower had finally arrived. The moment they landed, they once again bowed towards Eugene. "Thank you for waiting, Tower Master. We can now enter the tower." Eugene, however, did not reply. Instead, he concentrated and circulated his divine energy. In an instant, 3 sharp-shaped imprints appeared on his forehead. Forming a seal with a single hand, a long incantation constantly flowed out from his mouth. Streams of incantations that seemed to have materialized flew towards the white tower's surface, slowly forming a gigantic formation on it. Eugene's brows furrowed, red lightning sparks flashed in his palm, and he solemnly shouted, "Activate!" The entire Lightning Divine Palace shook for a moment, and the Lightning Divine Tower opened. Zhu Yao had thought that the so-called opening of the tower would be opening a door on the tower's surface. Who would have thought that it would actually open from top to bottom? The entire Lightning Divine Tower, which was connected to the ground, broke apart and opened upwards. It was as though the entire tower had been severed, yet, the tower itself was not affected in the slightest. This scene, which clearly defied gravity, stunned the earthling, Zhu Yao, yet, she felt the stuffy pain in her chest growing even heavier. After opening, the white tower's surface rose, and the empty space was only filled with a rainbow-colored, glass-like radiance. She could not see the slightest bit of the situation inside. "Let's enter the tower," Eugene said calmly. The eyes of the 5 people who were waiting instantly reflected a joyous light. They bowed towards Eugene one after another, and then, they flew into the rainbow-colored radiance, and were instantly engulfed by the radiance. Ever since the tower opened, Zhu Yao felt an unbearable pressure, as though something was about to charge out from her body. Pooh! Zhu Yao, who had endured for a long time, finally could not hold on any longer, and puked out a mouthful of blood. Yu Yao! Yu Yan held on to his disciple whose face was about to land on the ground. She was still fine earlier, what happened? Reaching out his hand, he sent a strand of divine energy over, yet, Yu Yan's brows furrowed even deeper. The divine energy in her body was currently flowing out at an extremely fast speed. Little grand disciple, what's wrong? Eugene was shocked as well, and could no longer care about acting cool. Bring her to the lightning abyssal pool first. I will come after I close the lightning divine tower. Yu Yan did not reply. With a turn of his body, he had already flown towards the lightning abyssal pool. The lightning abyssal pool was located at the backyard, and Yu Yan seemed to have arrived at his destination in the blink of an eye. However, in this short span of a breath, Zhu Yao could no longer maintain her human form, and once again turned back into a piece of white jade. Just as Yu Yan was about to place Zhu Yao into the purple-colored pool, he suddenly felt a powerful force assaulting him. He turned around and shot out a bolt of heavenly lightning behind him. After a loud rumble, a puff of black smoke dissipated, and there was not a single person in the surroundings. Forget about the person who ambushed him, there was not even the slightest fluctuation of divine energy. Who was it? Why did they suddenly attack him? Was it related to his disciple's sudden return to her original form? Yu Yan frowned, as he could not figure it out. To be able to approach him without him noticing, the person's cultivation level was definitely above his. However, why did that strike earlier not carry the slightest bit of killing intent? Yu Yan tightened his grip, and turned to look at his other hand which was still in the pool. Zhu Yao was currently lying steadily on his palm, and the loss of divine energy had stopped as well. The lightning energy of the lightning abyssal pool was currently entering the jade. He believed that not long later, she would once again be able to return to her human form. Yu Yan heaved a sigh of relief, and just as he was about to release the jade, allowing her to absorb it. However, a powerful suction force suddenly exploded from the pool. He immediately grabbed onto Zhu Yao, but he lost the opportunity to dodge. With a splash, his entire body fell into the pool as well. The pool shook, and a black light flashed at the bottom. Everything happened in an instant, so fast that no one could react in time. When Eugene, who had closed the lightning divine tower, rushed over, the only thing left in the backyard was a pool of water that was still gently shaking. Forget about little grand disciple, even Yu Yan was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 146. When Zhu Yao woke up, she was on a beach. In front of her was a forest, and behind her was a... Zhu Yao was unable to differentiate. What should she call that large expanse of water at the back? There was no end to it. It was as vast as the sea. However, it was not blue, but silver. It was very eye-catching. When she woke up, it was high tide time, and the water was all over her body. Just as she was about to climb up, she realized that she couldn't feel her limbs at all. Fuck, she turned into jade again. She circulated the immortal chi in her body in an attempt to transform back into her human form. However, she discovered that she didn't have enough immortal chi. Let alone transforming into a human form, she couldn't even form a single claw. But the tide had already passed her. If another wave came, she would definitely be smashed to pieces on the beach. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. She had no choice but to channel out a portion of her divine energy from the jade, and then, it formed into miniature limbs. He propped up his jade-like body and sprinted away before the next wave came crashing down. Thus, on the white beach, a piece of jade with legs was running desperately on the beach. He didn't stop until he ran into the forest. Phew, at least he wasn't dragged into the water. Zhu Yao heaved a long sigh of relief, and only then did she recall what happened earlier. She seemed to have seen an anomaly in the lightning divine tower, and then, her master brought her to the lightning abyssal pool. But why was she here? Where was master? Zhu Yao looked around for a moment, but she basically could not see anyone else other than herself. Master, master, just as he was about to use the last bit of his immortal power to return to the beach to search, he suddenly heard his master's familiar voice transmission. Look inside. Ha! What does that mean? Zhu Yao was startled. She looked around, yet, she was still unable to see her master's figure. He could only obediently withdraw his immortal power. He examined his own divine sense. In a blink of an eye, Zhu Yao saw another vast world. There were mountains, rivers, and even various kinds of strange flowers and plants. Especially, the air was filled with dense lightning energy that looked as though it was about to materialize. Yu Yan was currently standing on a patch of grass, and beside him was a mystic beast that was baring its fangs at him. Sesame. That was actually Sesame, who had not appeared for a long time. Sesame was startled. He bounced a few times on the spot. Looking left and right, he was unable to find Zhu Yao's figure even after a long while. Beastie misses you so much. Where are you? Currently, Zhu Yao was only a strand of consciousness that was using her inner vision, so naturally, she did not have a physical body. Sesame searched for a while, but it could not find Zhu Yao. It then roared at Yu Yan. Hey, where did you hide my master? Quickly hand it over. Yu Yan did not even give this stupid beast a glance. With a twist of his hand, Sesame, who was brimming with arrogance, was firmly pressed onto the ground. Sesame instantly snitched with teary eyes. Mistress. He bullied your beastie again. Zhu Yao could not be bothered with this stupid beast that had been missing for a long time. Master, just what's going on here? Yu Yan slightly raised his head. He said slowly, Yu Wang. This place is your divine sense. Is this her divine sense? Stop joking. Whose divine sense looked like this? How is this possible? Zhu Yao did not even have the mood to correct his way of addressing her, as she blankly looked at this vast world. She had seen her divine sense before. It was clearly a realm of whiteness and nothingness. When did a large forest grow out of it without any warning? And it was so ridiculously large. She could even sense that at the end of the forest, there was even a boundless ocean. Did it have to be so fantastical? Master, just what's going on? She had heard of tumors growing in the body, but she had never heard of a world growing out of it. This should be a mustard seed dimensional space. Yu Yan frowned. And the divine energy in this mustard seed dimensional space is more than 100 times denser than the outside world. Even the lightning divine hall cannot compare. Mustard seed dimensional space. It's growing in my divine sense. Why did she feel that it was so frightening? Yu Yan shook his head, and solemnly said. This dimensional space is connected to you, yet it does not have the slightest bit of divine sense presence. It's not simply born from your divine sense, it's more like your main body. If not for his personal succeeding disciple's imprint in his disciple's body, he would not have sensed that this was his disciple's divine sense dimensional space. Main body. My main body isn't a piece of jade. Wait a minute. She suddenly recalled the words Realm Spirit said before she reincarnated. He said that the character she reincarnated into this time would definitely be loved by everyone. Flowers would bloom when they see them, and cars would ride on them when they see them. No matter if they were men or women, young or old, they would not be able to rid themselves of your charm. They would view you as a treasure, never abandoning you. They would view you as a treasure, never abandoning a piece of jade. Mama's egg, she reincarnated into a portable dimensional space. It was the godly artifact that often appeared in various novels, the golden finger that could be used to plant various divine herbs and spiritual herbs. Master, there can't be a spiritual spring in this dimensional space, right? Yu Yen blanked, and then took a step to the side. As expected, there was a spring the size of a well behind him. There is indeed one, and the divine energy inside is the densest. Flip's table. Realm Spirit, come out. I'll beat you to death. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. She was wondering why she felt that something was strange when Realm Spirit was talking about her new character. Initially, she had thought that he was just exaggerating the golden finger a little. So that wasn't the case at all. She herself was that golden finger. She really wanted to cry. She clearly had the strongest golden finger, yet she couldn't use it herself, and had to be used by someone else. Then why are you here, Master? Sesame could understand. When she was in the lower realm, she had placed it in her divine sense. But how did her master enter? When I placed you in the lightning abyssal pool, I was ambushed by someone, and both of us fell to the bottom of the pool. At the bottom of the pool, there seemed to be a void-shattering formation. When I woke up, I was already here. Void-shattering. Was that why she was on that beach, and not in the lightning divine hole? Most likely, that void-shattering formation had sliced open the space within your body as well, which is why I'm here. In other words, her master was implicated by her. Then can Master leave now? Yu Yen shook his head. This dimensional space seems to have a corresponding law, and cannot be easily opened. It is impossible to break through from the inside as well. It was no wonder she was unable to sense Sesame ever since she reincarnated. She had even thought that it did not ascend with her. So it was basically unable to come out. I'm sorry. If not to save her, her master wouldn't have been trapped here. It's fine. Yu Yen, however, did not mind in the slightest. Compared to being locked up here, losing his disciple was more of a headache. At least he could sense everything about his disciple here. With him personally watching over him, his disciple would not try to court death again. Then what should we do now? Why did he feel like he had gained another MasterCard summoning beast? I do remember a little about the void formation in the lightning abyssal pond. I will do my best to restore that formation. Think of a way to get out. Yu Yen said with a stern expression. Before that, I will remain in your body. Inside the body, well. Something was wrong. All right. This was the only way. Then, Master, can I continue to cultivate? What should I do if I can't absorb any immortal energy? She had tried just now and realized that her body still couldn't absorb any immortal energy. Yu Yen looked at her a little strangely. Since you're this space, then the immortal chi in this space must be very powerful. Naturally, it's also yours. Master, you mean? She could use the immortal chi in the space at will. Unlike physical objects, divine energy isn't restricted by a physical form. Naturally, you can guide it out. Earlier, her cultivation had stopped leaking. It was because the immortal chi in this space was too dense, while the immortal chi outside was too thin, which was why it dissipated before it could be absorbed. In other words, the immortal chi here can be used as I please. I can use it whenever I want. Doesn't that mean that it's inexhaustible? Do you have to be so awesome? Yu Yan nodded with certainty. It was just that amazing. Zhu Yao instantly felt as though she was struck by a gigantic pie. Let me try. She hurriedly retracted her inner vision. She was no longer guiding the immortal chi from her jade body, but from her divine sense. As expected, a powerful energy endlessly surged out from her divine sense. As though a floodgate had been opened, the immortal chi flowed out unstoppably. Seemingly in the blink of an eye, she returned to her human form. Not only that, but even his cultivation began to rise rapidly. After taking her human form, her 5 senses were especially sharp. The meridians in her entire body were enduring immense pain, and she felt as though she could hear cracking sounds. It was as though she was a person who had not matured for a long time, and had suddenly gained 10 kilograms of weight, causing every part of her body to ache. However, she had already experienced this pain several times in the lower realm. Adding that the increase in her cultivation mainly focused on training her divine sense, there was basically no need for her to train it since her divine sense contained such a huge space. Hence, she could easily endure it. Her cultivation directly rose from the first level of an earth deity, to the second level, third level, all the way to the 10th level. Her dantian was already filled to the brim with immortal chi, yet it was still pouring in endlessly. Finally, there seemed to be a cracking sound, and the pressure on her body completely disappeared. Only then did Zhu Yao take a deep breath, and stopped guiding the immortal chi from her divine sense. Her cultivation had successfully entered the early stages of a profound deity. This feeling was simply unbelievable. Master! She habitually called out. In her mind, a familiar voice resounded. Let's leave this place first. Return to Lightning Divine Hall. Yu Yan was silent for a moment, before saying. I don't know who attacked me, and Lightning Divine Hall is a dangerous place as well. Not only can you not return, you cannot expose your identity as a disciple of Lightning Divine Hall either. Zhu Yao nodded. That's true. That bastard might just be waiting in Lightning Divine Hall. In any case, he and her master had safely escaped, so they might as well run as far as they could. She casually cast a dirt removal art on herself, summoned her own divine sword, and flew towards the other side of the forest. Zhu Yao flew extremely quickly, while removing the symbol of Lightning Divine Hall from her sleeves. When her sleeves had already turned pink like her clothes, a strange feeling suddenly flashed in the depths of her heart. Did she forget something? And at this moment, in Lightning Divine Hall, the forgotten Eugene, this forest wasn't that big. After flying for about an hour, Zhu Yao had already reached its borders. On the other side was a lush grassland, and on the other side of the grassland, the sky was filled with multicolored light, and auspicious clouds were gathering. There's definitely a market up ahead. Yu Yan transmitted his voice in her mind. Just as Zhu Yao was about to increase her speed and head over there to take a look, she suddenly heard a lewd laughter coming from the forest. For this deity to have taken a fancy to you, it's a blessing that you've cultivated for several lifetimes. Just obediently follow my orders, and you actually want to run. Let's see where you can run off to. Zhu Yao's feet paused, and her expression darkened. This was the déjà vu of teasing an innocent woman. Why did all the rogues of the 3 realms have the same tone, hey? Chapter 147. At the edge of the forest, 3 men and 1 woman were confronting each other. The woman's clothes were disheveled and she was panting heavily. Her eyes were filled with fear. She was an earth immortal, but the immortal chi on her body was not condensed and was somewhat unstable. She held her other shoulder with one hand and her fingers were faintly red. It seemed that she was injured. She was half surrounded by 3 men. The one in the middle, who should be the leader, had a ferocious look and a long scar on his face. "Run, why don't you continue to run?" The man smiled proudly, but the woman was forced into a corner. "You. What do you want?" The woman's voice was already faintly tearing up. "What do you want?" That person laughed even more obscenely and looked the woman up and down. He, I told you long ago in the city to obediently dual cultivate with me. I don't want to be your cultivation vessel." The woman retorted loudly. She had persevered and persevered in order to ascend to become an immortal. Even in the lower realm, she had never given up on herself. How could she endure being humiliated the moment she ascended to the upper realm? That's not up to you to decide. The man formed a seal and sealed the woman's movements, then grabbed her and pulled her into his embrace. With a forceful tug, he tore off a piece of the Taoist robe, revealing the snow-white skin underneath. "Don't worry. As long as you're obedient, I'll take good care of you." The man smiled proudly. Even the 2 people beside him only smiled as they watched this scene, as if they were already used to it. Let me go, let me go." The woman struggled with all her might, and even her voice was hoarse from all the shouting. Zhu Yao could not bear to watch any longer. She immediately flew down and shouted. "Release that girl, let me do it." The 3 hooligans, the girl, bah, I'm used to saying it. Ahem. I mean, let go of her. Sure enough, one had to choose a good line when seeing injustice. How dare you bully an innocent woman in broad daylight? You guys are too lawless. Where did you come from? Mind your own business. The leader didn't show the slightest bit of fear. He became even more arrogant. If you know what's good for you, move aside for this great immortal. Otherwise, you'll be in for it. Save me. Before Zhu Yao could even reply, the woman anxiously called for help. Her tears flowed even more violently. They wanted me to be their cultivation furnace, but I refused, so they. Fellow immortal, please save me. Smelly woman. The man cursed and raised his hand to give her a slap. This great immortal thinks highly of you, yet you don't know what's good for you. Go ahead and scream. Continue to scream, no one will come to save you even if you scream yourself hoarse. Zhu Yao's fury instantly erupted. Casting a wood-type mystic art, she materialized a long vine. He wrapped his arm around the woman's waist and pulled with force, pulling her back. Hello. Zhu Yao took a step forward, blocking in front of that woman. I'm going to stick my nose into this business. You want to stand up for her? The man was instantly enraged, and his whole body was overflowing with murderous intent. You better think this through. If you offend us 3 brothers, then don't even think about making a living here. Zhu Yao could not be bothered with this little ruffian. Turning around, she glanced at the disheveled woman. Leave this place. The woman was startled. Hesitantly glancing at her, she nodded a moment later, summoned her own divine sword, and flew away. Even if she stayed, she would only be a burden. You're courting death. The man was infuriated to the extreme. In an instant, a gigantic baleful aura exploded from his body. That baleful aura was astonishingly dense, and even the sky had instantly darkened. In an instant, a huge gust of wind blew, and it was extremely frightening. Zhu Yao was shocked as well. Earlier, she was unable to see through this person's cultivation level. Most likely, he was concealing his cultivation level. Looking at this aura now, his cultivation level should be higher than hers, a gold deity, or even a heavy deity. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth, and tightly held onto the sword in her hand. Who cares? For a scum like him, beating him up would be considered a light punishment. Taking a step back, that woman had already left. Even if she couldn't beat him, she could still run. Furthermore, her master had said that she could fight with him. Hey, little lady, are you afraid now? The man seemed to be very proud of the effect he had created, as he glanced at her with disdain. If you admit your wrongs right now, and kowtow to me 100 times, I can spare your life. Why are there so many useless words in a fight? With a wave of her hand, Zhu Yao summoned a bolt of heavenly lightning, and struck it towards the place where the man was standing. Then, she flew up, and charged towards him to attack. The man was startled, and his expression instantly paled. However, he did not forcefully take on that bolt of heavenly lightning, nor did he cast any defensive arts. Instead, he silently rolled on the ground, and left the range of the lightning strike. Zhu Yao did not mind his method of fighting, because she had already flown in front of the man. Taking advantage of the momentum, she kicked the man who was still rolling on the ground, and then, it hit. With such a casual kick, she actually managed to land a kick. With a bang, the man was sent flying several meters away. For a moment, Zhu Yao did not know if she should praise her good luck, or if the man was blind. A kick like that, even a regular earth deity would be able to dodge it, right? She actually managed to land a kick. Zhu Yao frowned, and a bold guess suddenly surfaced in the depths of her heart. She flew over, and continued to attack. However, the situation after that had verified her guess. Every single move she sent out, the man did not have the intention to block them. No, it should be said that the man was basically powerless to block them, let alone retaliate. In an instant, the entire place was filled with the man's pitiful cries, which sounded like a pig being slaughtered. This person was simply weak to the point of being fresh and refined. The hell, with such a low cultivation level, just what face do you have to act like a hoodlum, hey? She couldn't even use her sword anymore, alright. Zhu Yao simply stabbed her sword into the ground, rolled up her sleeves, and purposely aimed it at that ugly face of his. Left hook, right hook, uppercut, undercut, horizontal kick, side kick. She threw out all sorts of attacks. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Don't hit me, don't. The man covered his face with both of his hands, yet, it was to no avail. His face quickly swelled up into a pig's head, and even his hands, which he had tried to block multiple times, had swelled up into pig's trotters as well. This is what you get for not learning good things, this is what you get for taking liberties with innocent women, this is what you get for acting, great deity. I was wrong, please be lenient. I was really wrong. Ouch ouch ouch. Ouch ouch ouch. Zhu Yao beat him up for exactly an hour, and only when she could no longer find any place to attack from that pig face of his, did she finally stop. It had been a long time since she had beaten someone up to her heart's content. It was no wonder her master said that she could fight now. Zhu Yao patted her hands, picked up the sword at the side, and turned to glare at the other two men at the side. The two of them trembled, and their faces instantly turned as pale as paper. Without any backbone, they knelt on the ground, and gave her a deep bow. Great deity, spare us. We were wrong as well, really wrong. Zhu Yao kicked the pig head on the ground. Speak, just what's your cultivation level? And what's with that baleful aura earlier? Although this guy was inconceivably weak, the surging baleful aura earlier did indeed come from his body. I'll speak. The man immediately begged for mercy. Using his pair of eyes that were as swollen as light bulbs, he timidly glanced at her, and with lingering fear in his heart, he crawled away a little. This little one has cultivated in the mountains for 7,000 years before he managed to gain his human form. He's an arrow spirit. Sword spirit. Zhu Yao sized him up for a moment. He's indeed rather despicable. Not that despicable, it's the arrow of the bow and arrow. The man hurriedly explained, as he rubbed his bruised face. My original form is an arrow of a high deity of the divine realm. After the deity fell, I fell deep into the mountains, and by chance, my spiritual consciousness was awakened. Only then was I able to transform into a spirit. Then what's with that baleful aura of yours? That's because, before my master fell, he entered the Tao through slaughter. All of his weapons contain an enormous baleful aura. So, that frightening baleful aura belonged to his previous master. Zhu Yao glanced at him. Look at you. You're already called despicable, yet you're still so despicable. Can't you just cultivate properly? Why did you bully that lady? What kind of grudge did that lady have with you? Why did you have to snatch her away as a furnace? Great deity. That man no longer had that threatening baleful aura he had earlier. With a bruised face, he said in a wronged manner. You can't blame me for this. That lady is saying that she's looking for hubby on the streets. This little one is still single, and she's dressed like that, so... The hell? Zhu Yao once again gave him a kick. What does what she wears have to do with you? This isn't a reason for you to be beasts. Follow your logic. Those who carry money on the streets should be robbed. Who asked him to be rich? Those who have a life should be killed. Who asked him to reincarnate? But... The man was speechless. Just as he was about to explain, he was once again interrupted by her. Also... Zhu Yao coldly glared at him. She cupped her fists and let out a cracking sound. The reason why I ruined your face is because you were born ugly. You're asking for a beating. Great deity, spare my life. This little one was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. The pig-faced arrow immediately admitted defeat. He laid back on the ground, and became even more obedient. This little spirit will definitely change his confidence. I will cultivate properly, and become an arrow properly. Even if you want to be despicable, you can't be despicable to others. You can be despicable to yourself. What's so strange about this? Great deity is right. Scram. Thank you, great deity, for not killing me. Only then did the pig-faced arrow slowly crawl up. Carrying a bump on his head, he bent his waist with a respectful look. Suddenly, with a twist of his hand, he took out something from his sleeves, and threw it towards her. Yu Yao. Her master's voice instantly resounded in her ears. Zhu Yao instinctively summoned a bolt of purple heavenly lightning. A bolt of purple lightning, with a loud boom, instantly struck the pig-faced arrow in front of her. Even the talisman in his hands turned into ashes. The pig-faced arrow's dantian instantly shattered. With a pooth sound, he puked out a mouthful of old blood, spraying it all over Zhu Yao's face. The hell, this pig-faced arrow actually dared to launch a sneak attack. Zhu Yao raised her fists and wanted to punch him. Suddenly, her entire body emitted a gigantic red light, so blinding that the two lackeys next to her had to turn their heads away. Everything within her line of sight was covered by the red light. What's going on? Immediately after, she heard a ding sound resounding in her ears. The divine energy in her entire body was rapidly flowing away, and in the next moment, she once again turned back into that piece of jade. And Zhu Yao, who had fallen onto the ground, saw a row of gigantic golden words within the fiery red light. Spatial binding successful. The hell? Chapter 148. The arrow spirit, who was still standing next to Zhu Yao earlier and was charred black by the heavenly lightning bolt, simply felt a flash of red light in front of his eyes, and he instantly appeared in a foreign land. This place was beautiful, divine herbs were everywhere, and divine energy was dense. It was a treasured land for cultivation. If not for a man emitting a cold aura and a demonic beast bearing its fangs, the arrow spirit's legs trembled. The arrow spirit's legs trembled, and he knelt on the ground in fright from the aura of the man and the beast. He could not see through the man's cultivation, but he could clearly feel a killing intent that he could not resist. As expected, with a loud boom, a heavenly lightning bolt struck straight towards him. The arrow spirit, whose original body was made of metal, still had some natural resistance towards electricity. However, he could not withstand the continuous strikes. The arrow spirit felt that he had suffered the most inhumane abuse ever since he gained his human form. The lightning bolts struck him back to his original form, and he lost consciousness. Master. Zhu Yao's doubtful voice sounded from the sky. After looking within herself, she realized that the space had instantly shrunk by a lot. It was initially a boundless world, but now, it was only the size of a small farmhouse. Just what's going on? Yu Yan frowned. It's probably because this world has already recognized this person as its master. Recognized? That pig-headed arrow. Yu Yan nodded. A mustard seed space is also a spiritual object, so it will naturally recognize its master. However, I never expected that the method to activate this space would actually be through a blood contract, and only a drop of blood from the other party's heart is required. Zhu Yao instantly recalled the blood that covered her entire face from the pig-headed arrow, and she instantly felt like crying. Who said that good people would be rewarded? Come out. I don't want to see injustice in my entire life anymore. Then, why did the space become so small? It's probably because this spirit's cultivation is too weak, and is unable to fully utilize the space. That's why it's like this. Is there any way to remove it? Not for now. Could it be? I'm going to bind this pig-headed arrow to myself in the future. Yu Yan did not reply, and simply lowered his head to look at the half-broken arrow that had been struck by him, revealing its original form. Thinking that in the future, an arrow spirit like this would follow his disciple, he suddenly felt that he should strike him a few more times. When the arrow spirit woke up, he was no longer in that terrifying place. Even the wounds on his face had disappeared. As for the little girl who had beaten him into a pig's head, he was sitting not far away. She looked at him with a smile. You're awake. The little girl patted him on the shoulder and smiled even wider. The arrow spirit still hadn't come to his senses and nodded in a daze. You. Suddenly remembering the thunderbolts that had almost killed him, the arrow spirit trembled and knelt down with a thud. Great Immortal, please spare me. I won't dare to do it again. What are you trembling for? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have saved you and helped you regain your human form. The arrow spirit was stunned. He seemed to understand the meaning of her words and was instantly moved to the extreme. Great Immortal saved me. To be precise, it was her master who did it. She was only responsible for pulling him out. That's right. Only this arrow spirit could freely enter and exit the space. Yes, it's me. You mean it. Why are you crying? The arrow spirit was moved to the point where his tears and snot were mixed together. That miserable look gave Zhu Yao a fright. Great Immortal actually saved this little one. Thank you, Great Immortal. Whoa, do you have to be so moved so easily? What happened to your basic professional ethics as a little hoodlum? It's very scary to cry like this, alright. Whoa, Great Immortal's great kindness, this little spirit is unable to repay it. I can only repay it with my body, stop. Keep dreaming. There's no need for me to repay you. It's fine as long as you don't backstab me again. Backstab? The arrow's spirit was startled, his ugly face twisted. This little one has never backstabbed Great Immortal. You're still denying it. What's with that talisman earlier? If he had not thrown the talisman at her, she wouldn't have summoned the heavenly lightning to strike him, and she wouldn't have been bound just like that with his face covered in blood. Talisman. The arrow's spirit was startled. His extremely savage face instantly revealed a hint of sincerity. Back then, this little one wanted to present a treasure to Great Immortal. That was a talisman. Back then, Great Immortal spared this little one's life, and this little one wanted to present the treasure. Who knew that Immortal would? Do you think I'm stupid? Zhu Yao glared at him. That talisman was clearly an explosion talisman. The moment it is opened, it will automatically explode. If I did not coincidentally disperse it with the heavenly lightning, I would have long been blasted into smithereens by you. Explosion talisman. Impossible. This talisman was clearly personally bestowed to this little one by a gold deity senior to aid in my cultivation. The arrow's spirit's face was filled with confusion and disbelief. Zhu Yao frowned. Looking at him, it seemed like he really did not know that the talisman would explode. Recalling the position he was standing at earlier, if the talisman had truly exploded, he would have been implicated as well. Why did that gold deity give you a talisman? The arrow's spirit was stunned for a moment, and for a moment, he began to feel a little embarrassed. He chuckled a few times. I heard that dual cultivation is fast, so I have always been looking for a dual cultivator. That Great Immortal told me that I can find one in the city, and even gave me this talisman. He said that as long as I can find a dual cultivator, I can use this talisman to increase my cultivation speed. So, you're sincerely looking for that woman for dual cultivation, and not because you want to capture her as a furnace? That's right, that's right. That's right, your sister. Zhu Yao slapped his head. Is this how you pick up girls? If you want to dual cultivate with someone, why don't you talk about it properly? Instead, you're acting like a hoodlum. Great deity is right. From the looks of it, this arrow's spirit was being used by someone. That gold deity clearly wanted to use him to kill that woman, and that talisman was meant to silence her. However, most likely, that gold deity himself did not expect that this guy was just an empty shell. Although he was filled with a fiendish aura, his martial strength was only at the trashy level of 5. And she was an innocent passerby who was implicated. That woman's cultivation was not even stable as an earth deity, most likely, she had just ascended not too long ago. So, why would she form a grudge with a gold deity? Are you still able to find that gold deity? The arrow's spirit rubbed the place where he was slapped, and shook his head. But, I just saw him in the city yesterday. Perhaps, he's still there. Come, let's enter the city. Zhu Yao summoned her divine sword. Grabbing onto the arrow spirit, she flew towards the city that was filled with multicolored lights. Great deity Pa, this little one saw that gold deity in the south of the city. Great deity Pa. What the hell was that? Great deity's great name, isn't it Throat Pa? Your Throat Pa, your entire family's Throat Pa. My surname is Zhu. Aw. Your sister's Aw. What's your name? This little one's transformation time is short, so I have yet to name myself. Everyone calls me Arrow Spirit. Why don't Pa? Great deity Zhu give me a name? He had long changed his name, it was just that he could not find a suitable one. Lowly, and cunning. Indeed, it doesn't sound good. All right. I'll help you find one then. Zhu Yao patted on her chest, her face was filled with confidence. What name? She was the best at it. The arrow spirit's eyes instantly shone. Thank you, great deity. Amen. Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. Look at the fiendish aura you're emitting, and you're even in the form of a weapon. Your body is constructed from divine crystals. Although it's damaged, it's still considered a divine-grade weapon. Why don't you call yourself? What? Li Gooden. The arrow spirit's face, which was filled with anticipation, instantly stiffened. Great. Great deity, I'm not a dog spirit. Why did he have to be called Gooden? And where did his surname Li come from? Ha. Don't mind these details. Gooden sounds so nice. He's domineering, easy to raise, and catchy too. But why did he feel that something was a little strange? You must know, it's very dangerous for a little spirit like you to roam the divine realm. With a domineering name, it can increase your chances of survival, you know. In the future, you won't have to be afraid of being beaten up by others. I see. The arrow spirit's face shook, as he heavily nodded his head. He looked at her excitedly. Gooden thanks great deity for bestowing a name. I will definitely work hard in my cultivation. Amen, you're worth teaching. She was definitely not trying to find a sense of balance with the name Blossom Jade, nor was she trying to take revenge on the dimensional space that was suddenly bound to her. For some reason, when she heard the name Gooden, she suddenly felt that the entire world had become a little fresh. The two of them did not fly for long before they arrived at the city entrance. This city did not have any city walls, and its surroundings were surrounded by a layer of transparent, barrier-like formations. At the entrance, there was a gigantic wooden plaque floating in the air, and the name of the city was written on it. Two simple and crude words, Divine City. Amen, it was rather fitting. The city entrance did not have many guards, and there were many deities coming and going. The moment they entered, it was a completely different world. There was a gourd floating here, a pumpkin floating there, a corn floating on the left, and a watermelon floating on the right. However, those objects were all incomparably huge, as though they were the size of buildings. Only when she saw the deities walking in and out of the buildings, did she realize that they were really buildings. The standard of construction in the divine realm was pretty advanced, huh? Zhu Yao felt as though she had transmigrated into some sort of fruit fantasy world. Student Gooden, the arrow spirit, brought her directly towards the south of the city, and only stopped when they arrived in front of a winter melon building. Don't ask her why the south of the city was a winter melon and not a pumpkin. What was there in the east of the city? She could not do anything about the plants growing in the wrong place. Gooden brought his things in, and asked the owner of the building. As expected, that gold deity was no longer here. Most probably, in order to not expose his identity, he even thought of using someone else to do his dirty work. Naturally, he would not stay and wait for someone to settle the score. They then went around the city to ask around, but no one had seen that gold deity. Zhu Yao suspected that even that person's appearance was a human form. Seeing that she had suffered a loss this time, she could only admit that she was unlucky. After running around for a day, the sky was already dark. Zhu Yao decided to stay in the city for a night, and stayed in a building that looked especially like a sugar cane. She had to admit that the owner was pretty creative. The sugar cane was divided into sections, and every section was a room on the first floor. That was a place similar to an inn. However, these were not ordinary rooms, but cultivation caves filled with dense divine energy. She could stay there for a short period of time, and she could also cultivate there for a long period of time. She stayed in the 5th section, and Gooden was downstairs. Just when Zhu Yao was about to close the door and rest, she saw a familiar figure in front of her. Wasn't that person? What a coincidence, fate. Chapter 149. Master, I really want to see that female deity who was bullied by Godan. The red-clothed woman who had just walked into the opposite room was indeed the one they saw outside the forest during the day. Yes, judging from the aura, it is indeed so. Why is she still here? She clearly knew that this city was Godan's territory. Wasn't she afraid that he would come after her? Why did she continue to come back to court death? Yu Yao. Yu Yan's voice sank. That woman isn't simple. There's no need to befriend her. Ah. What does that mean? Yu Yan did not explain, and simply said indifferently. Her cultivation is above that arrow spirit in the first place. Zhu Yao was startled. Indeed, although that lady was just an earth deity with an unstable cultivation level, at the very least, she was still a human practitioner who had ascended to the divine realm. She clearly understood how difficult it was to become a deity in the lower realm, and those who were able to ascend were not simple people. Although Godan already had a physical body, he was still a pure monster. That evil body could scare people, but after all, he did not have any actual power. He could not even be considered as an earth immortal. Why was that woman caught by Godan? Furthermore, although she was screaming miserably, she did not cast any magic to resist. Why? Could it be? Zhu Yao frowned. That female deity has really fallen for Godan. Did she unintentionally break up a good marriage? Yu Yan, indeed, he should not have placed any hope in his disciple's intelligence. That female immortal should have sensed your presence nearby. Oh, so he was just using her. Damn, did her parents know that her acting was so good? Zhu Yao felt stifled in her heart. Initially, she had thought that she had done a good deed, but she never expected that putting aside the fact that he basically did not need her to save him, he had even accidentally bound his dimensional space. This was done. Now, he could only think of a way to remove the binding with Godan as soon as possible. Zhu Yao closed her eyes, and began to guide out divine energy from her divine sense for cultivation. Her space was so small that it was impossible to look at it directly, but the immortal chi was as dense as before. She tried her best to use her immortal energy to cleanse her meridians over and over again. Time passed by unknowingly. Yu Yao. Her master's voice once again rang, and it faintly carried a hint of heaviness. I can sense the aura of the person who attacked us earlier. Zhu Yao immediately stopped her cultivation and opened her eyes. Attack us. The one in the lightning divine palace. Yu Yan's voice grew even heavier. The other party should be in the opposite room. Opposite. That Oscar woman. Zhu Yao stood up in an instant. Opening the door, Zhang Xian walked out and saw that there was a ceiling formation on the other party's door. He carefully sensed the sounds of battle coming from inside. Be careful. Yu Yan instructed. After pondering for a moment, Zhu Yao once again returned to the house. Opening the window, she flew out, planning to circle around to the other side to check on the situation. But when he lowered his head, he bumped into the arrow spirit, Eggface, who had also climbed out of the window. Boss. Godan was pleasantly surprised. What the hell was a boss? You heard the fighting too. Let's go take a look. Zhu Yao simply called him along. Before he could get close to the room on the other side. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. Not far away, the entire wall was blasted open, and a figure instantly rushed out from the thick smoke. He dashed towards the night sky, and another figure followed closely behind. Zhu Yao chased after him without any hesitation. Boss, wait for me. Boss. Godan waved his hand, but the person in front of him had already disappeared. He had no choice but to accept his fate and follow, hoping that he would not lose them. While concealing herself, Zhu Yao chased after the two people. The one in front was the female deity she met during the day, while the black figure behind seemed to have intentionally concealed himself. However, she sensed a familiar aura, the same one she sensed under the lightning divine tower that day. The depths of her heart faintly surfaced again. How did he return? Just who in the world was that person? The two people flew extremely quickly. Just as they were about to catch up to her, their bodies suddenly felt light, and with a plop, they fell from the sky. The hell, why did she return to her original form? Why did she always drop the ball at such a crucial moment? What's the meaning of this? Zhu Yao was both furious and anxious. She wanted to circulate the divine energy in her divine sense to transform again, only to realize that her divine sense seemed to have been locked, and she was basically unable to circulate the divine energy. Master! She anxiously called out, yet there was no response at all. Calming her heart, she inspected her divine sense. Forget about space, she could not see anything at all. Her heart was in a state of panic. She tried a few more times, but the result was still the same. What was going on? Boss, boss. Gooden's voice resounded from not far away. Zhu Yao felt her body loosening. The divine energy that was still locked earlier instantly returned to her body, and not even a moment later, she once again returned to her human form. Master. Amen, a familiar voice once again resounded in her mind. Zhu Yao suddenly had the urge to cry. At that moment, she really thought that something had happened to her master in the space. Just what's going on? Earlier, your divine sense was sealed. Yu Yan said with a sunken voice. Because the owner of the space is too far away. You're talking about Gooden. Emin, she couldn't be too far away from Gooden. Otherwise, the space would automatically lock itself. Return to her original form. The hell, what kind of dog's hit setting was this? Then in the future, doesn't that mean I have to bring him along? Initially, she had thought that the space's recognition of its owner was merely an item in the space, which could be used by Gooden. She never expected that the so-called binding was actually really binding with her. Looking at the situation earlier, the distance between them should not exceed 10 kilometers. This was simply unbearable. Boss, I finally found you. Studently Gooden sprang out from the forest, and looked at her with a joyful expression. Ho ho. Looking at his bright and sunny expression, Zhu Yao instantly felt her hands itching. Whoa. What's wrong? Boss? This expression wasn't right. Li Gooden trembled, and weakly took a step back. Nothing. Zhu Yao patted on his shoulders. I just suddenly feel that you're especially handsome, especially suave, so beautiful that I want to destroy your face. Boss. Gooden's face flushed red, and embarrassedly scratched his head. I was born like this as well, there's no helping it. The hell? Zhu Yao raised her hand and slapped on his head. He actually shamelessly admitted it. Let's go, hurry and chase after them. To prevent him from flying too slowly and dragging her down, Zhu Yao simply pulled him onto her sword. The figures of the two were no longer in the sky, and even that female deity was nowhere to be seen. She had no choice but to chase after that aura earlier. Probably because she had delayed for too long, after flying for a short while, that aura disappeared. Zhu Yao had no choice but to land on the ground and look around, but there was still nothing. Boss, what are you looking for? Zhu Yao turned to glare at him. If not for you, this old lady here would have lost track of them. Why are you calling me boss? Seeing that she finally asked about this, Gooden said with an excited look. Because great deity is amazing. In our forest, whoever's amazing will be called boss. You want to be my lackey? Zhu Yao sized him up for a moment. Gooden immediately stood up straight, and said in an extremely fawning manner. He, great deity, I'm very useful. He had long heard that, to raise one's cultivation, other than being a treasure pair practitioner, one could also find a powerful person to guide them. Ever since Xu Yao brought him into the city, he had decided that he had to hug this thick thigh of the great deity. You've saved my life, and given me a name. Gooden is unable to repay you, and hopes to follow by your side in the future. If you tell me to go east, I will definitely not go west. Please accept me. Alright, I'll accept you. Gooden was a little dumbfounded. T. She's too casual, isn't she? She agreed to it so easily. What's too much? Call me boss. Earlier, she was still thinking about how to pull him along, but he actually followed her on his own. No need to thank me, I'm just that easygoing of a person. Alright, boss. No problem, boss. Gooden was still immersed in the excitement of hugging onto a thick thigh. Boss, enough, let's not talk anymore. Let's go. Xu Yao waved her hands without a mind, and turned around, planning to return to the city. No, boss, I want to say, I don't want to hear it. I'm saying, enough. Up in the sky. Before Xu Yao could even turn around, she heard a gust of wind, and her vision darkened. With a smack, something smashed onto her body, instantly pressing her onto the ground. She seemed to have heard the sound of bones shattering. Boss. Gooden trembled from fright, and hurriedly retreated a few steps. I wanted to tell you to be careful earlier. He wanted to remind her, but boss did not give him the chance. Gooden. He gritted his teeth. What a hindsight. Hurry and pull me out. Oh. Gooden then ran over, and pushed away the unidentified flying object on her body. When Xu Yao turned to look, she realized that the thing that was pressing onto her body earlier, was actually a person. After taking a closer look, it was someone she was familiar with. That female deity who was fleeing earlier. Why was she here? And she seemed to be heavily injured. Boss, it's her. Gooden revealed a surprised look as though he had picked up a treasure, and reached out to support the female deity. Xu Yao slapped away his claws. You still haven't given up on your lust. Only then did he retract his claws, feeling wronged. I just wanted to support her. Xu Yao took a closer look. That female deity had already fainted. Checking her pulse, her meridians were in a mess, and her dantian was shattered. As expected, she was heavily injured. Most probably, she was injured by that shadow that was chasing after her earlier. Just how did she escape? And she even purposely fell in front of them. How was she so sure that they would save her? Boss, how is it? Gooden came over with a worried look. Alright, with this guy here, they really knew how to save her. Xu Yao frowned, and she faintly felt a little uncomfortable in the depths of her heart. Although she was not someone who would leave someone in the lurch, the feeling of being schemed against to save someone really did not feel good. Her injuries are very heavy. Let's first bring her back to the tavern. Gooden nodded. Helping Xu Yao, he helped her up with one on the left and one on the right. He glanced at the woman next to him, as though he wanted to reveal a shy smile. However, the scar on his face just had to affect his expression, turning his shyness into obscenity. Boss, do you think I saved her life? After she wakes up, will she repay me with her body? Chapter 150. Oh. Gooden was instantly dumbfounded. The old spirits in the forest clearly said that the debt of saving one's life should be repaid with one's body. Liar. Xu Yao could not be bothered with this lonely arrow spirit. Raising her hand, she summoned her own divine sword, and specially changed it to a size that could accommodate 3 people. Let's go. Oh. Gooden nodded, and casually turned to look at her. Boss, why do I feel like you've suddenly grown a little taller? Nonsense. It's true. Gooden said with a serious look. Earlier, you were only at my shoulders, but now, you're at my eyes. My legs seem to have grown as well, and my body is a little wider as well. Gooden looked at her from head to toe, his face was filled with doubt. But this place seems a little small. As he said that, his hand reached towards her chest. You're courting death. Zhu Yao raised her hand and gave him a fried dumpling. Gooden said with a wronged look. I'm serious, boss. Your face has changed as well. You've become like a man. What nonsense are you spouting? Zhu Yao heavily patted on her chest. I'm a genuine female, flat. Zhu Yao's words stopped abruptly. No. There must be a problem with the way she touched her chest. Let's do it again. She once again touched her chest, but she still felt that it was a flat plane. This wasn't logical. Where were her crystal dumplings? Zhu Yao could not help but want to pull up her pants. Boss? Gooden shouted out, stopping her shameless actions in time. Did you lose something? Zhu Yao nodded with tears welling up in her eyes. Right. She lost her shameless actions. Wait a moment. Zhu Yao stuffed the woman into Gooden's hands, and sprinted towards a large tree not far away. Placing down an isolation formation, she pulled up her pants, unwilling to give up. Her eyes instantly suffered irreparable damage. Can someone tell me, what's that extra lump between her legs? This wasn't logical. Wait a minute, she remembered that a conversation window appeared when she transformed. There was only a single option for her body shape. Transvestite form, mama's egg. Could it be that this body shape came with a network delay as well? Zhu Yao walked back in a daze. 10,000 alpacas were madly galloping in her mind, trampling on her fragile nerves. Boss? Gooden's face was full of worry. Did you find the thing you lost? Zhu Yao shook her head. Ah. Then what should we do? Gooden was also a little nervous. Boss, what exactly are you missing? It must be an incredible magic treasure. Zhu Yao gave her a smile that was even uglier than crying. No, I'm not missing anything. I have one more thing. Ah. Zhu Yao returned to the inn with an incomparably heavy heart. No matter how he thought about it, he could not accept that he had suddenly turned into a man. How did it change? She had always been a woman. She hadn't eaten anything strange, nor had she cast any strange spells. The only special point. He was smashed by that female immortal. Wait, female immortal. In that case. It seemed that ever since she transformed, all the people she came into contact with were men. Master, Tower Master, and Gooden. Only that female immortal was female. Furthermore, he seemed to have been smashed to the ground by her. Only then did he become a man. Could it be because of this? She suddenly had a bad guess. Gooden, come here. Ah. Gooden walked over with a doubtful look. Zhu Yao grabbed onto his hand. Boss. Why you? Gooden instantly widened his eyes. I sell my body, not my skills. Dream on. Scram. She kicked Gooden out of the door, and anxiously looked at the changes to her body. As expected, her figure was slowly changing. Her height had shrunk, her face had swelled up, and even the foreign object between her legs had disappeared. The hell, so her gender was determined by the people around her. If she met a man, she would turn into a woman. If she met a woman, she would turn into a man. Wasn't this a little too random? Was it really alright for the so-called transvestite form to be so casual? Boss. Gooden was still pounding on the door, wanting to enter. That lady's injuries are very heavy. I want to save her, let me in. Stop nagging. I will treat this woman's injuries, stand guard outside for me. When Zhu Yao said that, as expected, he stopped, and obediently meditated at the door to protect her. Looking at the female deity lying on the bed, Zhu Yao instantly felt unwell. So, when she was smashed by her earlier, did she accidentally activate her second gender attribute? Zhu Yao expressed that she was powerless to retort. Resigned to her fate, she helped the person up and sat behind her. Circulating her divine energy, she resigned to her fate and began to treat her injuries. I can't just watch her die in front of me. As expected, the moment she touched her skin, her body once again began to undergo a chemical reaction. She once again turned into a man's body. Ho ho. Realm spirit your second uncle, transvestite your grandpa. The female deity's injuries were very heavy. The person who was chasing after her definitely had the intention of taking her life, and did not hold back at all. If she had not met them, she basically wouldn't have been able to last past tonight. The person who injured her was most likely that gold deity Gooden mentioned. She wondered just what kind of deep grudge that person had with her, to the point where he wanted her dead no matter what. Zhu Yao could only circulate her divine energy to repair her damaged meridians. Repairing meridians was an extremely meticulous task, and she could not afford to be distracted in the slightest. Furthermore, it consumed an extremely large amount of divine energy. Fortunately, she had a dimensional space of divine energy that she could use as she wished. As for her dantian, she completely did not know how to repair it. Fortunately, she had an omnipotent master. If she didn't know, she could just ask. Master, how do I repair my dantian? How much divine energy do I have to use, and how do I circulate it? Yu Yen frowned. He had a lot of opinions towards his disciple's rotten kindness. In any case, she wasn't one of them, so what's the point of saving her? Hence, he did not put in a little bit of effort into teaching her. He left behind a little bit of the techniques, and even left out a little of the things to take note of. Hence, she puked out blood. I can't control my divine energy anymore. The divine energy is flowing in reverse. Her dantian has shattered into pieces. Zhu Yao spent exactly 3 days, before she barely managed to repair this unlucky female deity's dantian. She began to have deep doubts towards her own comprehension ability. As expected, she wasn't suitable for cultivation, right? Zhu Yao took a deep breath and retracted her cultivation. She was more or less done with the treatment. As for the rest, she could only wait for her to wake up and recuperate. Zhu Yao got off the bed, found a chair, and sat down. While she was at it, she poured herself a cup of tea. After drinking a third of it, that female deity had already slowly regained consciousness. As though she had sensed Zhu Yao's presence, she sat up in shock. She tightly grabbed onto her own collar, and looked as though she was about to cry. She looked as though she had suffered some sort of heavenly grievance. If not for the fact that she knew this female deity had an Oscar. In addition, he was a pure woman. She might really suspect that he had done something worse than a beast to her. This old lady here didn't even strip your clothes. You're just grabbing onto your knitted collar. Seeing that she did not have any reaction, the female deity retracted her flustered emotions, and her expression slowly calmed down as well. Circulating her internal energy, she then realized that a large half of her injuries had already healed. Was it Senior who saved this little girl? Zhu Yao glanced at her. She did not reply, and continued to drink her own tea. However, the female deity seemed to have already confirmed it, as she hurriedly got off the bed and bowed towards her. "Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. This little girl will definitely repay you in the future." Her master had said that this person was a scheming person, and should not be befriended too deeply. Look at her expression. That expression of hers was as though she wished to repay her with everything she had. Acting was always done in one way or another. Zhu Yao silently gave a thumbs up. "But, if you can act, I can as well." She was the best at acting cold and aloof. "Senior." Seeing that Zhu Yao was still not replying, the female deity was a little anxious. She had thought that he would at least ask about what happened to her, however, he did not even give her a single glance. This was the first time she had met such a cold man, as though other people's matters were not related to him in the slightest. Then, why did he save her? Zhu Yao continued to drink her tea, and even her gaze had drifted out of the window, as though she did not have the slightest intention of replying. Amen. Being cold and aloof was inherited from her sect. The female gritted her teeth. "This little girl is called Immerse, and I ascended from the white spiritual realm. Senior, is it possible for you to tell me your title, so that I can repay you in the future?" Zhu Yao finally turned her head around, however, she simply glanced over coldly, and her eyes did not contain the slightest bit of emotions. Mo Xianxian was startled by his gaze. His eyes were cold and emotionless, yet, they were simply too penetrating, as though all of her schemes could not be hidden from his eyes. Fog. She was simply letting her mind wander. In her heart, the female deity was the first to panic. She had indeed harbored a few thoughts. She had checked earlier, and her injuries were already mostly healed. Even her ruptured dantian had been mostly mended. Even in the divine realm, those who possessed the ability to mend dantians were definitely mighty figures. If he was willing to take her in, then she would definitely be a little safer in the higher realm. However, how could a person like that agree to her so easily? He must have long seen through her. Mo Xianxian gritted her teeth, and decided to just throw caution to the wind. She immediately knelt down in front of Zhu Yao. "Senior, please save this little deity." Zhu Yao frowned, and pinched the empty cup in her hands. She was hesitating if she should refill it. She had already spilled out the entire story like beans being poured out. This little deity had only ascended a month ago, but ever since the day I ascended, I have always been hunted by unknown people, and have been plotting against me. I have wandered the borders of life and death many times, and this time, I was even heavily injured. Zhu Yao still did not speak, and simply quietly twirled the empty cup in her hands. "I know that this matter is indeed unrelated to Senior. This little deity is bold and rude." Mo Xianxian continued. "However, if no one helps me, I will definitely be harmed to death by the person behind the scenes. Although this little deity's death isn't to be regretted, wouldn't it be a waste of Senior's efforts to save my life?" Zhu Yao raised her brows. Mo Xianxian clenched her fists, and continued to explain. "This little deity doesn't know who the people chasing after me are. And I haven't formed any enmity with anyone either. However, when this little deity was in the lower realm, I had a husband who was a practitioner. His name was Yuran, and he ascended 1,000 years before this little deity. In the past few days, I have tried to find out about his current situation, but not only was I unable to find him, I even attracted these unknown enemies. So, this little deity reckons that these people chasing after me should have enmity with my husband's family. So that's the case." Zhu Yao placed down the cup in her hands. "Senior." Mo Xianxian carefully inspected his expression. However, he still did not say a single word. Suddenly, he stood up, pulled open the door, and walked out. You've already said it yourself, what else is there for me to say? But she took the initiative to suggest disbanding. I've thought about it. I don't have any foundation in the higher realm. If there's really someone who wishes to kill me, it'll be futile no matter where I run to. Mo Xianxian's expression was unexpectedly firm. So, I wish to first enter the Advent Cloud Hall of the East, and then search for my husband. With the protection of the sect, even if the people behind the scenes want to touch me, they won't be able to. They will also have their own concerns. This was indeed a good idea. Of the 4 continents in the immortal world, the Advent Cloud Hall of the East was the strongest. Thank you for saving my life, Senior. Mo Xianxian solemnly bowed towards her, however, she did not say any more pleasantries like repaying her. This little deity will take her leave now. Zhu Yao nodded. Mo Xianxian then turned around, summoned her divine sword, and rose into the air. On the other hand, Gooden, who was at the side, looked at the beautiful woman who was getting further and further away with teary eyes. Stop looking. Even if you look, she's not yours. Zhu Yao raised her hand and patted on his head. She's already married. Didn't you hear that she's going to look for her husband? She really did not know how he had misheard that she was looking for her husband, as though she was looking for a dual practitioner partner. Boss. Gooden held back 2 bags of tears that were about to fall out, as he sniffled. I really like her. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Io, you're actually acting like a hoodlum now. Forget it. In the future, Boss will introduce a few more beautiful girls to you. Really? Gooden's eyes shone. Of course. Zhu Yao patted on her chest and guaranteed. I guarantee that every single one of them is prettier than her. There's no need for that. I don't have high expectations. Gooden scratched his head and chuckled. As long as they're prettier than Boss. The hell? Zhu Yao sent a kick towards him. You can just stay single until you die. Men who were heartbroken were unreasonable. After Mo Xianxian left, Gooden was unable to recover from the setback, and he would sigh and sigh in front of her every single day. Take a step. Ha, take another step. Ha, ha, take another step. Ha, 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 enough. Zhu Yao was so frustrated that she wanted to flip a table. In the past, why didn't she feel that other than being stupid, Gooden was so annoying as well? If not for the fact that she could not stay too far away from him, she would have definitely sent him to Mars. Don't you just want to go to Mo Xianxian? Let's set off now, alright. Men who were heartbroken or whatever, were simply unreasonable. Really? Gooden instantly squatted in front of her, and the only thing missing was a woof. Zhu Yao's hands itched as she sent a slap towards him. Aren't you going to lead the way? She wasn't going to go to Advent Cloud Hole. Alright. Gooden immediately ran out of the door with his buttocks shaking, and flew at the front. Zhu Yao slowly followed behind him on her flying sword. She had planned on following Mo Xianxian to Advent Cloud Hall in the first place. Her master and Sesame were still locked in the dimensional space. If she were to find the person who attacked them in Lightning Divine Hall back then, she would be able to rescue them earlier. Currently, all the clues were on Mo Xianxian, so naturally, she had to follow after her. However, she could not brazenly follow her, as it would be easy for her to be exposed. After all, the enemy was in the dark, while she was in the light. It wouldn't be good if she alerted the enemy. Hence, she intentionally waited a few days. However, Gooden, this piggish teammate, was simply too annoying. Fortunately, she had warned him yesterday not to tell him that she was the woman who saved Emo Xian outside the forest back then. The two of them flew towards the east for an entire half a day, yet, they were still unable to see the shadow of Advent Cloud Hole. Gooden, however, suddenly changed his direction, and instead, flew towards the west. Didn't you say that Advent Cloud Hall is in the east? Why did he suddenly change direction? Boss, there's something you don't know. Gooden explained. Advent Cloud Hall controls the entire eastern continent, and their disciples are scattered all over the place. If one wishes to join them, they have to first register at the various halls. Only after passing the test can they enter Advent Cloud Hall. You know quite a lot, huh? Zhu Yao glanced at him. What happened to the promise that he had just taken human form? Lil Sis Xian said that she wanted to go to Advent Cloud Hall, so in these few days, I have been asking around in the Divine City. Yo, he even called her Xian. I've even heard of it. These halls are all practitioners from the lower realms, and they are the place where the heavenly door opens when they ascend. Most human practitioners who ascend and become deities will choose to enter Advent Cloud Hall. So the reason why these halls were set up was to facilitate the selection of talents. Gooden once again gave her the basic knowledge of the divine realm. Only now did Zhu Yao find out that other than the powers of the 4 continents, there was also a scatter weep hall, which was formed entirely by wandering deities who were unwilling to join any of the powers. This was also the reason why back then when the various powers headed to Lightning Divine Hall. The reason why there were 5 teams. Scatter Weep Hall did not place too many restrictions on its disciples. Most of them were like sheep grazing on grass, and only occasionally, when there were important matters, would someone appear. They were a little similar to the wandering practitioners in the lower realm, except that the wandering practitioners in the lower realm were completely unorganized and undisciplined. Scatter Weep Hall simply had an additional restriction. And in the entire divine realm. Other than the human practitioners who ascended from the lower realm, there were also various spiritual monsters who had gained spiritual intelligence. For example, Gooden and Mushroom. Because the divine realm was filled with divine energy, objects in the divine realm were extremely easily influenced by this divine energy, and gained spiritual intelligence. Living and inanimate objects were fine. As long as they gained spiritual intelligence, they would have the qualifications to cultivate. After a spiritual monster's cultivation level rose, they would no longer need to experience the pain of the lightning tribulation. However, it was extremely difficult for spiritual monsters to cultivate, and they had to go through a very long period of time. Especially most spiritual monsters, because they had just gained spiritual intelligence, their schemes and methods could not compare to human practitioners who had lived in the lower realm for thousands of years. Because they were born lacking, even if their cultivation level rose, they would still not be a match for human practitioners. Spiritual monsters who gained spiritual intelligence in the higher realm were extremely common. Their numbers were usually double that of human practitioners. Hence, spiritual monsters were even more worthless. Just like the pumpkins and watermelons she saw in the divine city back then. Gourd buildings were actually the main bodies of spiritual monsters who had already gained spiritual intelligence. When Zhu Yao recalled that she had once stayed in the stomach of a spiritual monster, she instantly felt a little strange. All of the human practitioners and spiritual monsters of the divine realm lived together on the 4 continents, but it was not just limited to the 4 continents. Other than the 4 continents, there was still the Void Spirit continent. The area it occupied was even larger than the 4 continents combined. That place was rather amazing, because it was the territory of demonic immortals. The so-called demonic immortal was the place where demonic beasts of the lower realm broke through to the 10th rank, went through the lightning tribulation, and ascended. The strength of demonic beasts was stronger than human practitioners in the first place, and those that could ascend to the higher realm were even more powerful to a certain extent. Even the strength of demonic immortals who had just ascended to the higher realm was at least at the profound deity level. Human practitioners and demonic beasts were enemies in the lower realm, and it was not much better in the higher realm either.